Chapter 853. The undulating mountains were a scene of desolation. A figure whizzed between the mountains at an extremely fast speed. A snow-white ice dragon soared into the sky and roared to protect him. In an instant, the figure disappeared, but it startled some birds and beasts along the way and made them wail in panic. That figure was Lin's son. Since leaving Qingqiu Mountain, he had been shuttling through the mountains towards Great Qin Province. In another 20 days, the world-famous Tao Discussion Lantern Festival would begin, and the place of the Lantern Festival was Kangwu Mountain in Great Qin Province. Boom! The mountains stood in the sky like halberds. Lin Sun's body emitted divine light, and his speed was so fast that it was like chasing the sun and lightning. As he crossed the void, there was a deafening sonic boom. Along the way, he was deducing and tempering his own strength. Although he had just entered the reincarnation developing realm and set foot on the legendary path of the strongest Tao, Lin Sun would not relax. If he wanted to forge his Tao and become a king when the Great Era arrived, set foot on the peak, and become a true king realm existence, the cultivation of the reincarnation development realm was undoubtedly the most crucial. This realm was the last of the 5 realms of cultivation. It was the head of martial realm, Gang Spirit Realm, Sea Spirit Realm, and Tao Insight. Above, it was the life and death realm that countless practitioners dreamed of. It could be said that the reincarnation developing realm was a key realm in cultivation. If one wanted to become a king, he must build a solid foundation in this realm. The reincarnation developing realm was divided into 3 stages: initial realm, middle realm, and later realm. At this stage, the Tao insight in one's body would turn into a wheel that contained all one's original power. Just as the name suggested, reincarnation developing meant to derive wonderful images and complete reincarnation. A wheel contained the practitioner's own cultivation and the true meaning of Tao. At the same time, it was also the source of the practitioner's power. At this stage, the practitioner could manipulate the power of Tao, condense the spirit to develop the divine awareness, and have the power to turn the world upside down. Generally speaking, the reincarnation developing realm was already the top existence in the world. As for the king, it was the existence that stood at the top of all mountains. It had already surpassed the scope of the 5 realms of cultivation. It was a giant overlord in the world. If the divine didn't appear, then the king was the most powerful. Lin Sun's current cultivation was at the initial stage of the reincarnation development realm, and he had developed his own divine wheel of the Great Path. However, he was different from ordinary cultivators in the reincarnation development realm. He had already stepped on the path to the top, and his primordial spirit had evolved. Even his cultivation of the Great Path had reached the stage of Tao meaning when he was in the Grotto Heaven realm. Presently, his strength was capable of forcefully crushing a half-step king realm expert, so he was naturally completely unafraid of anyone at the same cultivation realm as him. However, Lin Sun pursued the path of perfection, and it was for the sake of stepping foot onto the peak of the king realm in the great world. So, it was naturally impossible for him to be satisfied with just this. The second half of the Nature Insight and Nature Devour scripture contains the secrets of becoming a monarch, but it is not the real cultivation method. It seems that in order to break through life and death and become a monarch, the cultivator needs to step on a path that belongs to himself. Only in this way can he be different from the world, different from the ages, and become a true Death King. On the way, Lin Sun comprehended and tried to figure out. Last time in the Heaven Accessing Place, the rewards he got were the Nature Insight and Nature Devour scripture and the second half of the Tianyuan Saber play. However, what the Nature Insight and Nature Devour scripture recorded was a kind of mystery of becoming a monarch or a kind of experience and perception. This made Lin Sun realize that if he continued to cultivate according to his own path, then the path he took was destined not to be suitable to follow the old path of the king realm in the past. He needed to carry on the past and open up a new path that belonged to him. From the ancient times to the present, take the present as the road and open up the way to the future. This was destined to be a path that was different from the ancient times and the present. As the saying goes, there are talents in every generation, and each of them leads the way for hundreds of years. The previous path was just an inheritance. It could be inherited, but it couldn't be conservative. In this way, it was no different from following the old path of the ancient people. No matter how great one's achievements were, he couldn't compete with the ancient sages after all. Now, an unprecedented great world war was coming, which was destined to be a great world that had never happened in the ancient times. Everything was full of unknowns. If he still followed the old path, how could he set foot on the legendary and ethereal path of the Supreme King? Lin Sun was no longer comparable to the past until he stepped into the reincarnation developing realm, which made him more and more aware that if he rigidly stuck to the inherent path of inheritance, he was doomed to have no chance to reach the Supreme King realm in this life. So, what he was searching for now was an unprecedented path towards the Tao that belonged to himself. Perhaps this was true forging of the Tao. It was forging a path towards the grand Tao that was different from the ages, and it was sufficient to compete for glory with the sages of the ancient times. Of course, all this might still seem a little illusory, but a journey of 1,000 miles began with a single step. As long as one persisted, there would be a day when he would succeed. 3 days later, in the wilderness, Lin Sun stood upright in the void. The broken blade, like silver lightning, suddenly flew across the sky and cut the mountains for thousands of miles. However, everything was silent. Not long after his figure left, the mountains broke from the middle and then collapsed with a rumble. Each mountain was smooth and tidy, as if it had been flattened by the hand of God, with a kind of shocking power. Silence Shop. The first move of the second half of Tianyuan's saber play, silence as silence, emptiness as boundless, could cut the universe, mountains and rivers in an instant without being disturbed by ghosts and gods. Lin Sun had now comprehended the complete Tianyuan saber play, which should actually be called 6 cuts of Tianyuan. The 6 cuts were reaching for the stars, embracing the moon, burning the sun, silence, life and death, and impermanence. Every single slash possessed might that shook the heavens and the earth, and it was profound, unfathomable, and boundlessly terrifying. It was absolutely a supreme, ultimate technique that shook the ages. In the past, Lin Sun only practiced the first half of Tianyuan saber play, so he couldn't see the real core mystery of this inheritance. But now it was completely different. The complete saber play seemed to glow with a new mystery. The mystery and power contained in it shocked Lin Sun, and he became more aware of the extraordinariness of the heaven-accessing place. Because this inheritance was inherited from the heaven-accessing place. With his current comprehension, Lin Sun could barely comprehend the mystery of Silence Chop. As for Life and Death Chop and Impermanence Chop, they were too obscure and mysterious for him to deduce all their mysteries for a while. Lin Sun couldn't help marveling at this. On the way, Lin Sun didn't stay idle. He let the spirit of the primordial spirit sit cross-legged in the sea of his consciousness, concentrating on deducing the mystery of Life and Death Chop and Impermanence Chop. According to his estimation, he could fully comprehend the mystery of the last 2 cuts in about half a year. 7 days later, Lin Sun walked out of the vast mountains. Originally, his momentum was as sharp as a sword, emitting peerless sharpness. His whole body was like a well-tempered sword edge, blooming with brilliance that changed the color of the world. But as he walked out step by step, his momentum began to converge little by little like a tide. Finally, all the sharpness was restrained inside his body. Looking at him again, he was dressed in a moon-white robe, with his black hair casually hanging down to his waist. His breath was as calm as still water, and he regained his transcendent aura. After many days of practice, Lin Sun finally consolidated his realm and made a step forward in his cultivation. Yet now, he was already able to control every single inch of strength in his body at will. This was what it meant to do as one pleased without going beyond the rules, like having a thunderstorm in one's chest yet a heart as calm as a lake. Luoyin's city. In the distance, the outline of a huge city came into view. It was evening, and the sunset was like fire, plating the whole city with a layer of magnificent gold. Entering this city is equivalent to entering the territory of Great Qin Province. Now there are about 7 days before the Tao Discussion Lantern Festival begins. I don't know how many talents have gathered in Shiheng World. As soon as Lin Sun thought of this, he inevitably thought of you jamming 1,000 illusion Taoist sect and Feng Linhan of Baji Saber Nunnery. He also thought of Ji Xingyao, the saintess of Xianwen Sword House, who is known as the leader of the younger generation in Shiheng World, and Yu Linkong, a peerless figure from the pure land of longevity in South Xian World. He even thought of Zhuo Kuanglan, one of the 5 inherited disciples of Yuhua Sword Sect, Shai Yutong, and Lu Jioga, the 5th prince of Fire Crow clan. They might have already arrived in Great Qin Province. And Zhongli Wuji and Qing Lianer, the saintess of Cyan Phoenix clan. I wonder if they have come. As soon as Lin Sun thought of this, his black eyes flashed with coldness. He would never forget how these 2 fellows had looked down on and criticized him in front of the world. They had treated him as a stepping stone to boost their reputation. Whoosh! Without staying any longer, Lin Sun's figure flashed and flashed towards the distant Luoyang city. Shocking news. Li Qinghuan, a young talent of Tsangmei Taoist sect in Xinyan Province, and Wu Duanya, the first inherited disciple of Xianyang sect in Huayin Province, have arrived at Star Cliff City in front of Kangwu Mountain. According to statistics, up to now, the number of famous talents from thousands of provinces in Shiheng World has reached more than 500. Rumor has it that the Tao Discussion Lantern Festival is very likely to be attended by powerful figures from Dongsheng, Beidou, and South Xian World. As soon as he entered Luoyang City, the bustling streets, crowded restaurants, and tea houses were almost everywhere discussing and talking about the Tao Discussion Lantern Festival. The extremely hot scene surprised Lin Sun secretly, and he had to sigh with emotion that the influence of the Tao Discussion Lantern Festival in Shiheng World was really great. Some clues could be seen from the discussions of the practitioners in this world. Hey, I heard that Demon God Lin has appeared in Bloody Mist City. I wonder if it's true. What made Lin Sun's expression slightly strange was that there were actually many voices talking about him amidst these bustling discussions. I'm more curious about whether Demon God Lin dares to participate in the Tao Discussion Lantern Festival. Nowadays, it's not only peerless figures like Zhongli Wuji and Qing Lian but also some other talents have a lot of opinions about Demon God Lin, and they intend to take him down a notch in the Tao Discussion Lantern Festival. I've also heard that the reason is that Demon God Lin has made too much of stir before, and it has faintly covered the fame of many talents. This naturally causes people to be very dissatisfied. Moreover, I heard that many orthodoxies now think that Demon God Lin is very likely to be unworthy of his name, and he's not as powerful as the legend says at all. No matter what, if Demon God Lin dares to come, there'll definitely be a great show to watch. Lin Sun's expression became more and more strange when he heard these discussions. He seriously suspected that behind all these discussions were those big mouths in the Wind Whisperer clan fanning the flames. Chapter 854. Lin Sun stayed in Luoyang City for half a day and then set off for Starcliff City. Starcliff City was located in the hinterland of Great Qin Province. It was an extremely ancient city. It was said that Starcliff City had existed since ancient times. Starcliff City was extremely famous in West Hung territory because the location of the Tao Discussion Lantern Festival, which was held every 100 years, was located on Kangwu Mountain outside Starcliff City. Half a day later, outside Starcliff City, Lin Sun put away the treasure ship and floated into the city. Master, since Kangwu Mountain is outside the city, why don't we go there immediately? Why wait in this city? It's your first time to participate in the Tao Discussion Lantern Festival, so you naturally don't understand. Kangwu Mountain was also a holy mountain in ancient times. It's said that there was a real congenital deity who established a Taoist field here to teach. It can be said to be a land covered with miracles. Even if you approach it now, you can't set foot on it unless the time is right. I see. In Starcliff City, there was an endless stream of carriages, people coming and going, and the noise of conversation resounded everywhere. This magnificent and ancient city was one of the most prosperous places in Great Qin province. It had a population of tens of thousands and was extremely lively. As the time of the Tao Discussion Lantern Festival was getting closer and closer, the whole Starcliff city had become the most eye-catching place in the whole Westing territory. Every day, countless strong people came from all directions, including the descendants of ancient orthodoxies, the descendants of aristocratic families with a long history, the descendants of various clans and creatures. Of course, even more people had come to watch the show. After all, the Tao Discussion Lantern Festival wasn't something that just anyone could participate in. When Lin's son entered the city, a touch of surprise flashed in his black eyes. So many strong people. Under the perception of his powerful divine soul, he found that there were many people with powerful aura in the street. Some of them were even not inferior to some of the top talents Lin's son had seen in terms of momentum and style. There were also some figures of old monsters flashing among them. They were either the elders of a certain orthodoxy or the big shots of a certain great force. They were all followed by young men and women. There are actually some auras that are comparable to formidable figures like Zhuo Quanglan and Lu Jioga. Looks like it's really as the news said. Starcliff City has already become the place where the geniuses of the younger generation of the Western Ocean world gather. Lin Sun sighed with emotion. He'd just entered the city, yet he'd casually seen so many outstanding geniuses on the streets. This obviously showed that the Tao Discussion Lantern meeting this time had drawn over countless influential figures from the Westworld. However, top geniuses like Zhuo Quanglan and Lu Jioga could only be considered a small minority. Only 2 or 3 of them were among the hundreds. But even so, it was shocking enough. After all, Zhuo Quanglan was one of the 5 great true disciples of the ancient orthodoxy emergent sword sect. There were only a small portion of people like him in the ancient orthodoxies of the West Hung world. Lin Sun followed the crowd to the center of the city. Message trees stood towering in the tens of thousands of cities in the West Hung world's 1,000 provinces, and Starcliff City was naturally no exception. There's less than 7 days left before the Tao Discussion Lantern meeting begins. According to the statistics of our Wind Speaker clan, there are over 1,000 geniuses that have come from the various places of the West Ocean world within Starcliff City. Moreover, this number is still increasing at an alarming rate. It's certain that when the Tao Discussion Lantern meeting officially begins, it's bound to be an unprecedented scene of 10,000 geniuses fighting for hegemony. Now that the battle of the great world is coming, the significance of this Tao Discussion Lantern meeting has become extraordinary at such a critical moment. In the end, which peerless genius can stand out and win the title of the first in the Lantern meeting? Let's wait and see. In front of the message tree, figures were moving and heads were moving. Countless message leaves were unrolling, deducing the latest news. Lin Sun stood there with his breath restrained. Moreover, he'd used the formless skill, and his temperament had undergone earth-shaking changes, so he didn't need to worry about being recognized. Now, Lin Sun already knew that there was an extremely magical tree on Kangwu Mountain. Its whole body seemed to be made of bronze, vigorous and ancient, and it could hold up the sky. It had existed since ancient times and experienced the vicissitudes of time, and it had an ancient past that was sufficient to shock the world. Most miraculous of it all was that numerous bronze flower buds would condense on the bare branches of this tree every 100 years. Every single time they bloomed, it was like a bronze lamp had been lit up, and they hung on the branches while emanating a myriad of multicolored and gorgeous rain of divine flames that illuminated the sky, causing it to seem extremely divine. These bronze flowers were known as the ancient Tao's lantern flowers. As for the ancient and sacred bronze tree, it was called the Ancient Path's Green Lamp Tree. The curtains to the Tao Lantern discussion that was held every 100 years would be drawn beneath that green lantern tree. However, before the ancient Tao lamp flower bloomed, this divine tree was like a sage that lived in seclusion and wouldn't appear in the world. Even if one arrived at Kangwu Mountain in advance, it was impossible to find any trace of it. The reason why the Tao Discussion Lantern meeting attracted the attention of the entire Shihing territory wasn't just because of the Tao discussion, but because of the lantern meeting. A peerless fortune was hidden within the ancient Tao lamp tree, and only true extraordinary geniuses had the opportunity to obtain it. According to rumor, the current sect master of the profound Sikh sword school, Mu Sanshue, had once obtained a supreme fortune during the Tao Discussion Lantern meeting when he was young, and it allowed his path towards the Tao to skyrocket. He merely utilized less than 100 years of time to attain the Tao and look down upon the world. The most terrifying part was that Mu Sanshue was reputed to be a peak legend amongst the King realm cultivators of the current era, and numerous ancient sects felt that it wouldn't be long before he would be able to overcome the 9 tribulations of longevity, attain the path of the Saint Tao, and become another saint of the profound Sikh sword school. On the other hand, there were many examples of people like Mu Sanshue who'd obtained fortune during the Tao Discussion Lantern meetings of the past, and all of them had more or less obtained a completely new fortune and transformation on their path towards the Tao. This was precisely the reason why the Tao Discussion Lantern gathering attracted the cultivators of West Hung World. Seizing world-shocking fortune from the Tao discussion was something that every single cultivator dreamt of. However, only the geniuses of the younger generation were able to participate in the Tao Discussion Lantern meeting, and if one didn't possess the qualifications, then one would be utterly unable to approach it even if the ancient Tao Lantern tree appeared. Move aside. Suddenly, an explosive shout resounded nearby the message tree, and it was like a thunderclap that shocked some cultivators to the point their entire bodies trembled and almost fell to the ground. An enormous man that was over 3 m tall and possessed a ferocious aura walked over from nearby, and his large hand that was like a cattail leaf fan pushed fiercely, causing the crowd to be instantly split apart. Some cultivators weren't able to dodge in time and were pushed to the ground. They were just about to let loose a torrent of curses, yet their expressions instantly turned grim when they saw the appearance of the enormous man clearly, and they went silent like cicadas in the winter. An expert of the ocean shark clan in the baleful Devil Sea. A cultivator exclaimed with shock. In an instant, the expressions of the nearby cultivators changed. The baleful Devil Sea wasn't an ordinary place, and numerous ancient clans of the ocean resided there. On the other hand, the Ocean Shark clan was an overlord in the baleful Devil Sea. The enormous man grunted coldly, and he seemed to be extremely arrogant. But right after that, he turned around and respectfully moved to the side, and he seemed to be extremely humble. It was also at this moment that people saw a group of men and women following behind the enormous man. The person in the lead was a man in a golden robe, with an imposing figure and a head of long blue hair. His eyes were as sharp as blades, and he was extremely frightening. The other men and women surrounded him like stars surrounding the moon, and they approached the message tree. This is actually the holy son of the Ocean Shark clan, one of the 10 great geniuses of the baleful Devil Sea, Sha Luchan. Some of the cultivators were greatly shocked, and their expressions became even more fearful and respectful. The Ocean Shark clan was extremely terrifying, and as the holy son of the Ocean Shark clan, Sha Luchan, could be said to be famous among the younger generation of the Great West Boundary. It was rumored that this person was born with a root of wisdom, and his constitution was pure. He cultivated the mysterious secret arts of the ancient Buddhist sects, and his strength was unfathomable. Sha Yochan's group had a trace of unique arrogance on their faces, and they ignored the fearful and respectful gazes around them as they directly arrived in front of the message tree. Why is there still no news of Demon Lin? After a short moment, Sha Luchan frowned and said, "On the way to Star Cliff City this time, I heard quite a bit about this person. I just wanted to use this opportunity to see if he's as formidable as the rumors say. But why hasn't he arrived yet?" The nearby cultivators were secretly surprised. The holy son of the Ocean Shark clan, one of the 10 great geniuses of the baleful Devil Sea, actually also wanted a deal with Demon Lin. Why did he say also? It was simple. Now in Starcliff City, many geniuses and geniuses gathered. Many people couldn't bear to see Demon Lin, and they wanted to give Demon Lin a show of strength at the beginning of the Dao Discussion Lantern Festival. This was nothing new, and it had spread all over the Great Qin province a few days ago. Now, many cultivators were also waiting to see whether Demon Lin, who was said to be a god, dared to participate in the Dao Discussion Lantern Festival this time. In the crowd, Lin Sun looked calm, but he hated Bai Fenglu more and more in his heart. If he hadn't exposed his deeds a while ago, how could he have been targeted by so many people? Now, some people he didn't know all wanted to kill him, which made Lin Sun speechless for a while. Of course, he wasn't afraid, but he felt it was very troublesome. As the saying goes, people are afraid of fame, and pigs are afraid of being fat. From now on, if anyone can find the clues of Demon Lin's appearance in Star Cliff City, you can come to me for a reward. Sha Luchan looked proud and aloof, with a touch of oppressive strength, and said indifferently, "Of course, if Demon Lin dares to show up, as long as he admits that his strength is not as good as mine, I won't let him lose too badly." After saying that, he turned around and strode away with a group of men and women. In the field, all the cultivators gasped. Was Sha Luchan going to suppress Demon Lin in front of the world like Zhongli Wuji and Qing Lianer had done? Lin Sun was a little annoyed. Why did anyone dare to jump out to despise and attack him now? Chapter 855. There was no hostility for no reason in the world. In Lin Sun's view, Sha Youchan's approach was no different from that of Zhongli Wuji and Qing Lianer. He regarded Lin Sun as a stepping stone and wanted to step on Lin Sun to boost his prestige. When Lin Sun turned around and left the message tree, he saw a familiar figure. He raised his eyebrows and curled his lips. It was really a small world. It was a skinny old man with shifty eyes. At this moment, he hurriedly came to Sha Luchan and shouted, "Child Sha, I'm from the Wind Whisperer clan. May I ask you some questions about Demon God Lin?" Originally, Sha Luchan was a little unhappy that his path was blocked, but when he heard the words Demon God Lin, he immediately stopped in his tracks. He glanced sideways at Bai Fenglu and nodded reservedly. "What do you want to ask?" "Just ask. I have nothing to fear from Demon God Lin." His words were very strong and direct. "You deserve to be a peerless talent from the evil demon sea. It's hard for me not to admire your demeanor." Bai Fenglu had a solemn expression on his face, but he shamelessly flattered Meng Qi. Then he shamelessly asked, "Mr. Sha, may I ask what you think of Demon God Lin?" Sha Luchan said without hesitation, "He's nothing more than a deceiver. I don't think the rumors about him in the world are true. They're just false rumors. If he dares to appear, I'll definitely expose his background and ruin his reputation. I'll let the truth be revealed to the world." His words were indifferent, sonorous, and disdainful. He directly defined Lin Sun as a deceiver. Lin Sun, who witnessed all this secretly, couldn't help sneering in his heart. It seemed that this guy was determined to make things difficult for him. Bai Fenglu was very excited. This was the first-hand news. Even after Sha Luchan and his people left, Bai Fenglu was still thinking about how to make use of this news to set off a sensation in Starcliff City. Sha Luchan is also a fool. He wants to step on Demon God Lin. What a whimsical idea. However, this is even more interesting. After all, it is a clash between two peerless geniuses. It will definitely attract the attention of the world. "Are you a friend from the Wind Whisperer tribe?" At this moment, an honest-looking youth with a simple temperament approached. Bai Fenglu nodded absent-mindedly. "What's up, kid? What's up?" The youth scratched his head and looked around warily. Only then did he say in a low voice, "I have clues about Demon God Lin." Before he could finish, Bai Fenglu's eyes lit up. "Are you sure?" The youth said unhappily, "If you don't believe me, I'll sell the news to someone else." After he finished speaking, he turned around and was about to leave, but he was hurriedly stopped by Bai Fenglu. Bai Fenglu said apologetically, "Young brother, it's not that I don't believe you, but this matter is of great importance. If you lie to me, then the consequences will be very serious." The young man said angrily, "I can take you to see him, but you have to give me some compensation first." Seeing this, Bai Fenglu's heart immediately calmed down. He realized that this young man was probably not lying. He generously took out a storage bag and handed it to the young man. There are 100 mid-grade spiritual marrows in here. If you really see Demon God Lin, these are all yours. The young man smiled honestly, put the storage bag away, and said, "Follow me." Bai Fenglu hurriedly followed. However, 10 minutes later, Bai Fenglu felt that something was wrong. The young man led him through the city, turning here and there. The further they went, the more remote they became. "I say, young brother, is there something wrong with your information? This place is too remote," he said suspiciously. "That's impossible. I heard that Demon God Lin is currently being targeted by many people. Naturally, he wouldn't dare to appear in a crowded place. He must be hiding," the young man said casually. Bai Fenglu chuckled, and the suspicions in his heart disappeared. Instead, he said proudly, "Young brother, you don't understand. The more it is like this, the more extraordinary Demon God Lin will be. As the saying goes, the taller the tree in the forest, the more the wind will blow it down. The more this matter is stirred up, the more attention Demon God Lin will attract when he really appears. The more he spoke, the more excited he became, spittle flying everywhere. Can you imagine how exciting it will be when Demon God Lin appears and competes with many peerless geniuses? There's no doubt that it will definitely cause a sensation in the entire Shi-Hung world. Oh, of course, I will also send the news out as soon as possible. When that time comes, I can also use this opportunity to show off." The young man was confused. "Just to show off?" Bai Fenglu said in an old-fashioned manner. "Young brother, one look and I can tell that you don't understand. When that time comes, if Demon God Lin manages to overcome all obstacles, his fame will definitely spread further. Where did his fame come from? Wasn't it all because of me? This kind of glory is not something that just anyone can have." The young man nodded and continued to ask, "What if Demon God Lin is unfortunately defeated by some peerless genius?" Bai Fenglu laughed out loud. He looked like he was in charge of everything. "You're really too young. What does Demon God Lin's defeat have to do with me? I'm only in charge of spreading the news. The world won't blame Demon God Lin's defeat on me. When that time comes, I'll just find another good seedling like Demon God Lin and help him build up his reputation again." The young man said thoughtfully, "In that case, whether Demon God Lin wins or loses, it'll be beneficial to you." Bai Fenglu smiled and praised, "You're a promising child. Promising my ass." At that moment, the young man suddenly stopped in his tracks and slapped the back of Bai Fenglu's head. Smack! Bai Fenglu staggered and almost fell. He saw stars and was so angry that his whole body trembled. He shouted, "F***CK, you little bastard, why did you hit me?" Before he finished speaking, he was pressed to the ground by the young man and beaten up violently. Bai Fenglu screamed like a pig being slaughtered. "Murder! Murder!" Bai Fenglu screamed, his face swollen and his hair disheveled. "Continue shouting. I want to see who will come and save you in this remote place." The young man laughed coldly and gave Bai Fenglu's skinny body another round of beatings. "Young hero, please spare me. Young hero, please spare me. I really know I was wrong. I won't do it again." Bai Fenglu hugged his head and begged for mercy. Just a moment ago, he was still complacent and composed, and he seemed to be in control of the situation. Yet now, he was like a mangy dog that repeatedly begged for mercy. The contrast between before and after was extremely great, and he seemed to have no backbone at all. "I can spare you if you want me to, but from now on, you must stop investigating and spreading news about Demon God Lin. If you can do that, I'll let you go immediately." The young man stopped and looked down at him. Unexpectedly, even under such a brutal beating, Bai Fenglu's reaction was very intense. He said angrily and decisively, "Impossible. The Wind Whisperer clan was born to spread news. If that's the case, you might as well kill me." "Do you really think I don't dare to kill you?" The young man raised his eyebrows, his killing intent surging. Bai Fenglu scoffed and said righteously, "It's useless even if you kill me. Even if I die, more of my clansmen will come forward. As the saying goes, even if I die, my bones will be fragrant, and I will not be ashamed of being a hero in the world. My death will definitely be remembered and spread by my clan." Even if I don't go down in history, I will at least be remembered by the world." The young man was speechless. Even in death, this old man was still thinking about how to go down in history and spread his name. What an old weirdo. "Stand up. I have something to ask you," the young man said impatiently. This old man was speaking righteously, but in reality, he was scared to death. He kept hugging the young man's leg and refused to let go. "You're not going to kill me?" Bai Fenglu asked. "If I kill you, won't I make your name go down in history?" the young man said sarcastically. Bai Fenglu was embarrassed. He gritted his teeth and endured the pain all over his body to stand up. He was about to say something, but when he saw the young man's face clearly, his eyes immediately widened. He was stunned as if he had seen a ghost. After a while, he jumped 3 feet high and said hoarsely, "Demon God Lin?" The young man was Lin Sun, but he had returned to his original appearance. "Why? Didn't you want to see me? Now that I'm here, why do you not seem to welcome me?" Lin Sun sneered. Bai Fenglu was dumbfounded. He stood there with a bloody nose and a swollen face, looking very pitiful. At this moment, he felt like he was in a mess in the wind. How could he have thought that he would meet the person he was talking about just now? He had only been bragging about himself. This was too much of a blow to him. Bai Fenglu wanted to slap himself. "Let me ask you, has Yu Jianming, the future leader of the Thousand Illusion sect in the Fire Spirit State, arrived in Starcliff City?" Lin Sun asked. This was a reason why he took the initiative to find Bai Fenglu. After all, it was Yu Jianming who gave him a token to participate in the Tao Discussion Lantern Festival and wanted to accompany him. Now that Lin Sun was here, he naturally had to meet Yu Jianming. If he wanted to inquire about Yu Jianming's whereabouts, it was absolutely the right choice to find the Wind Whisperer clan. Yu Jianming? Bai Fenglu was stunned. After thinking for a moment, he said, "It seems that he has appeared in Starcliff City more than 10 days ago. However, a talent like him can only dominate the Fire Spirit State. If you look at the whole West Hung territory, he is a little weak." This old man was indeed well informed, but his mouth was very mean. He did not forget to take the opportunity to ridicule Yu Jianming. "Do you know where he is now?" Lin Sun asked. "The pavilion of spring and autumn." Bai Fenglu answered without hesitation this time. "All the talents who are qualified to participate in the Tao Discussion Lantern Festival will go to the pavilion of spring and autumn. In this way, those talents can communicate with each other in advance. They can not only evaluate their opponents more clearly, but also have a clear understanding of their own strength. In this way, they can judge the situation and take precautions in advance when the Tao Discussion Lantern Festival begins, so as to avoid offending the people they shouldn't offend." Lin Sun immediately understood. He turned around and was about to leave, but he saw Bai Fenglu hurriedly catch up with him. His old face was full of flattery, and he said, "Child Lin, you should have just arrived in Starcliff City, right? In order to express my eagerness to redeem myself, let me lead the way for you, okay?" Chapter 856. What was taking advantage of the situation? That was exactly what Bai Fenglu was doing at the moment. Lin Sun couldn't help but be stunned. He had just beaten this old guy up fiercely. He didn't expect that in the blink of an eye, this guy didn't care at all and took the initiative to come to him. Lin Sun was amazed by Fenglu's excellent self-cultivation and shameless behavior. "You still don't want to give up?" Lin Sun asked. Bai Fenglu waved his hand repeatedly and said, "Child Lin, please don't misunderstand me. I guarantee with my integrity that I will never leak the news that you are in Starcliff City." Integrity? Lin Sun secretly despised him. "How dare you talk about integrity?" Bai Fenglu was very thick-skinned. He laughed and said, "In fact, it's enough to confirm that you are here to participate in the Tao Discussion Lantern Festival. After all, with your peerless demeanor, there is no need to publicize it at all. It will be known sooner or later. Don't talk nonsense. If it weren't for you, how could I have faced so many undeserved disasters?" Lin Sun had the impulse to hit him as he spoke. Bai Fenglu sighed with emotion. "Child Lin, this is the struggle for the Tao. If you want to stand out among the young talents, how can you not face some criticism and provocation? For a peerless figure like you, even if you don't want to cause trouble, other talents will also see you as an opponent. They will seize the opportunity to trample on you to gain fame and reputation. Lin Sun was a little surprised. Bai Fengliu's words were almost the same as what he had expected. In the context of the coming great era, the young talents of all the clans in the world were accumulating power and exerting their strength. They wanted to seize the opportunity to become kings on the road of Tao and set foot on the top. Under such circumstances, competition and confrontation, killing and confrontation were bound to be inevitable. It was like thousands of troops fighting to cross a single log bridge. Whoever could break through the encirclement and stand out first will be able to seize the greatest opportunity. Spring and Autumn Pavilion. Situated at the center of Starcliff City, it was 300 m tall, completely constructed from glazed jade and bathed in a layer of dreamlike and gorgeous sheen under the sunlight. The Pavilion of Spring and Autumn could be called a famous historical site in Starcliff City. It was rumored that in ancient times, a saint passed by this place and once looked up at the stars in the pavilion, deducing the rise and fall of the past and present. Before he left behind a sacred message that shocked the ages. Know me and sin me, only the spring and autumn period. It was just 8 words, but they contained a kind of boundless grandeur. Let the people of the world judge it. In the end, the eternal history will give me a verdict. This was the demeanor of a sage. The Pavilion of Spring and Autumn also became famous because of the 8 words divine mantra. It became a famous ancient place in the hearts of countless cultivators. Over the years, countless experts had come to admire it. However, every time the Tao Discussion Lantern Festival approached, the Pavilion of Spring and Autumn would become a restricted area. Only geniuses that possessed the qualifications to participate in the Tao discussion were able to ascend it, and other experts didn't dare to approach it. This was an unwritten rule. In the past, there have been many cultivators who refused to accept it. They thought that the Pavilion of Spring and Autumn was a relic left behind by an ancient sage, and that everyone was qualified to enter. However, before they could get close, they were suppressed by some geniuses on the spot and forced to retreat. Over time, this rule was passed down. There is still a distance from the Pavilion of Spring and Autumn. On the spacious and bustling streets, ferocious beasts galloped and divine birds spread their wings. They looked extremely mystical, but at this moment, they were all being used as mounts, carrying people on their backs. The cultivators on the nearby streets all avoided them, not daring to block the way, because they knew that the cultivators who could ride on such terrifying mounts had powerful backgrounds, not to mention provoking them. They had to maintain a kind of reverence. Wow, what a powerful king beast. Is that the legendary green flame Qilin? Its whole body is steaming with green divine flames, and its aura is like that of a king. Exclamations could be heard from time to time on the streets. It is said that the green flame Qilin is the guardian beast of the ancient orthodoxy Jade Void Temple. It has monstrous power that is comparable to a half-step king realm cultivator. In that case, the man and woman sitting on the green flame Qilin must be the geniuses of the Jade Void Temple. Yes, it must be Mu Jianting, the #1 successor disciple of the Jade Void Temple. Only a peerless genius like him is qualified to be protected by the green flame Qilin. Lin Sun and Bai Fengliu happened to see this scene when they walked over from afar. They could not help but sigh. These successors from ancient orthodoxies were each more extravagant than the last. Even their mounts were half-step king realm cultivators. These days, a storm has gathered in Starcliff City, and the Pavilion of Spring and Autumn is the center of attention. Many geniuses from all over the West-hung world will gather here, Bai Fengliu explained. Bai Fengliu explained from the side. Because of this, many cultivators have been attracted here to witness the glory of different prodigies. Because of this, the area around the Pavilion of Spring and Autumn has become the most popular place. I see. As he spoke, Lin Sun pulled Bai Fengliu closer to the side of the road. Right at this moment, a horrifying fluctuation spread out in the air. A divine bird, dozens of feet long, with a body that seemed to be made of immortal gold and bright feathers, flew across the sky. Some cultivators were not able to dodge in time. They were sent flying and fell on the ground. The dark gold sparrow. This is a divine bird with the bloodline of the immortal king of the Archean age. It is so powerful. It seems that it is only one step away from the king realm. Exclamations were heard. All the cultivators nearby looked at the back of the dark gold sparrow. There was a group of people, both men and women, descendants of the Miluo palace. At this moment, even Bai Fenglu was shocked. After some explanation, Lin Sun learned that the Miluo palace was also an ancient orthodoxy, but it was located in a secret realm of small world called the Earth Imperial Universe. In the West Hung world, apart from the thousands of states, there were many independent small worlds. The Earth Imperial Universe was one of the most famous. According to Bai Fenglu, the Miluo palace had such a long history that it could be traced back to the ancient times. It was just that the descendants of this orthodoxy hadn't appeared in the West Hung world for thousands of years. No one expected that they would reappear at this moment. There is no doubt that the descendants of the Miluo palace were also here for the Tao Discussion Lantern Festival. The ancient desolation is so vast. Lin Sun sighed with emotion. Lin Sun sighed with emotion in his heart. The more he knew about it, the more mysterious and vast the ancient desolation territory was. It was just the West Hung territory, but included almost boundless territories and many unheard of small worlds. It was not hard to imagine how vast the ancient desolation, which had the territory of the 4 major worlds, was. Boom! All of a sudden, the street was shaking. The nearby buildings were shaking. A thunderous roar came out, shaking the universe. Not far away, a huge white lion bathed in lightning appeared. It was breathing clouds and mist, and its beard was dancing in the air. The lightning all over its body made a deafening noise and gave off dazzling silver lightning. Good heavens, the white jade, thunder lion. This is an ancient mutant. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. The experts of the Thunder Clan of the Great Desolation are here. There was a palace on the back of the white jade thunder lion, and some figures could be vaguely seen in it. There were men and women, and their auras were extraordinary. The Thunder Clan of the Great Desolation is one of the top 5 clans in the West Hung world. The descendants of the clan all have precious blood that contains the power of lightning. They are talented and have terrifying combat strength. If I'm not wrong, the one who came to participate in the Tao Discussion Lantern Festival must be Lei Qianjun of the younger generation of the Thunder Clan of the Great Desolation, who has the title of Young Thunder Marquis. Bai Fenglu took a deep breath and spoke with certainty. He had heard about Young Thunder Marquis and knew that he was a peerless figure with unparalleled combat strength and terrifying talent. Lin Sun was speechless for a moment. They were still on the road, but they had already seen so many dazzling and tyrannical figures. It would be difficult for anyone to remain calm. As they continued forward, they saw more and more divine birds and fierce beasts along the way, and all of them were extremely terrifying, causing many practitioners to tremble. In comparison, Lin Sun seemed very inconspicuous. He only had an old man from the Wind Whisperer clan by his side, and he didn't even have a mount. Naturally, it was impossible for him to attract any attention. Child Lin, with your current status, you seem to be too low-key. This is not good. Being too low-key will easily be ignored and looked down upon by others, Bai Fenglu said with emotion. Lin Sun said, doesn't the Wind Whisperer clan have a pair of wings naturally? Do you want to show them and fly me? Let's also be high profile. Bai Fenglu's expression froze, and he hurriedly changed the topic. This demon god Lin was really indulging in the wildest fantasies. If other practitioners saw him flying with an old skeleton like him, they would definitely be embarrassed to death. Suddenly, Lin Sun's eyes narrowed, and he was slightly startled. He saw a familiar figure flash by on the street, not far away. It was a young girl dressed in white. She was elegant and otherworldly, and her fair face was elegant and tranquil. Her starry eyes were bright, and her hair was jet black. Her lips were red and moist, and her skin was as translucent as mutton fat. She was like a fairy who had walked out of a painting, otherworldly, By Ling Shi. It was really her. Lin Sun felt a little uneasy. Back in the Yin capital, he had seen a nine-headed golden serpent dragging a mysterious immortal palace across the sky. At that time, Lin Sun vaguely saw a familiar figure standing in the immortal palace. Unfortunately, he was too far away to be sure. But now, seeing her again in Star Cliff City, Lin Sun was sure that the person he saw at that time must be Bai Lingshi. Obviously, after entering the ancient desolation realm from Xiao Empire, Bai Lingshi entered the southern Xian world and joined the ancient orthodoxy pure land of immortality to cultivate. Lin Sun originally wanted to go forward and greet her, but he noticed that there were some men and women accompanying Bai Lingshi. All of them looked extraordinary, and they were obviously the successors of the immortal Pure Land. This made Lin Sun a little hesitant. Child Lin, don't tell me you've taken a fancy to that girl? Then go ahead and chase her. It's a waste of your youth if you don't flirt. Beside him, Bai Fenglu opened his eyes wide and chuckled. His old face was full of wretchedness. Lin Sun slapped the back of Bai Fenglu's head, making him grimace and cry out in pain. At this moment, Bai Lingshi seemed to have sensed something in the distance, and a pair of clear eyes suddenly looked over. When she saw Lin Sun, she couldn't help but be slightly startled, and then she walked over. Chapter 857. The young girl was dressed in white, and her fine black hair cascaded down to her slender waist like a waterfall, drawing out a graceful, slender, and moving curve. On the other hand, she was elegant and peerlessly beautiful, like an otherworldly fairy. Under her contrast, the nearby men and women seemed to pale in comparison. At this moment, she walked directly towards Lin Sun with light footsteps like a fairy that had fallen to the mortal world. Her cherry-red lips carried a smile, and a pair of bright and clear eyes were suffused with a strange luster. Bai Fenglu was dumbfounded. Just now, he'd encouraged Lin Sun to pursue this young girl, but in the blink of an eye, she'd actually come to him. I didn't expect to see you here. Bai Lingshi's tone carried a trace of joy, and it was a pleasant surprise of meeting an old friend in a foreign land. You recognize me? Lin Sun was surprised, and he was quite happy to meet an old friend. Don't forget that I was born with the talent of Starshine Eternal. As long as I remember someone, even if they turn into ashes, I will still be able to recognize them. Bai Lingshi pursed her lips and smiled. Her clear eyes were kind, her beautiful hair was like a waterfall, and her white clothes fluttered in the wind. She had an otherworldly beauty. Lin Sun suddenly came to a realization, and he sighed with emotion in his heart as he looked at the young girl who'd grown up. When they'd cultivated in the bloodthirsty camp, everyone was only 13 or 14 years old. Bai Lingshi had revealed a beauty that was far beyond the world at that time. Many people thought that she was destined to be a proud daughter of the Empire in the future, and she would be as dazzling as the sun in the sky and attract the attention of the world. Now, after a few years, she'd become the successor of the southern mysterious world's longevity pure land, and she'd become even more beautiful, graceful, and peerless. At this moment, it was noon, and the warm sunlight enveloped Bai Lingshi's graceful figure in a layer of a pure and holy radiance. Her fair and beautiful face was tranquil like before, and she was like a celestial maiden of the moon. Bai Lingshi looked Lin Sun up and down. After so many years, meeting him again today caused her to feel quite emotional. You've come to participate in the Tao Discussion Lantern Festival as well? That's right. With the talent and foundation you had in the past, it's only natural for you to participate in this Lantern Festival. She smiled lightly. What about you? Aren't you here to participate in the Tao Discussion Lantern Gathering as well? Lin Sun smiled as well. Different from his impression of Shai Yutong, he and Bai Lingshi were classmates, and they had a good relationship in the Xiao Empire. While they were talking, the men and women who were with Bai Lingshi also came over and looked at Lin Sun with some surprise. However, when they noticed his ordinary appearance, simple aura, and inconspicuous appearance, all of them withdrew their sizing-up gazes and felt slightly indifferent. Junior Sister Lingxi, I didn't expect you to have acquaintances in the great West world. May I know who this young master is? Can you introduce him to us? A charming woman in a fiery red crane cloak grinned as she asked, and her words carried a trace of faint ridicule. That's right, junior sister Linksy. You're the brightest rising star in the pure land of longevity. Even senior brother Yu Linkong appreciates you. I'm sure your friend is no ordinary person. The other men and women followed suit, but their expressions were frivolous and mocking. It was obvious that they were jeering and disrespecting others. Lin Sun frowned imperceptibly. However, Bai Lingshi's beautiful face remained tranquil as she said indifferently, "All of you are right. This friend of mine is extraordinary indeed. All of you'll naturally get to know him once the Tao discussion lantern discussion begins. But at that time, I hope that senior brothers and senior sisters won't make such a fuss about nothing." These words were said calmly, but it was undoubtedly an invisible counterattack. Making a fuss? A trace of displeasure flashed across the faces of those men and women. The woman in the fiery crane cloak even sneered and squinted at Lin Sun, sizing him up and scrutinizing him unscrupulously. After a while, she said in surprise, "That's not right. Why don't I see how great junior sister Lingxi's friend is? People like him can be found everywhere on the street. It's an exaggeration to say that he's not ordinary. Is he the friend you made, junior sister Lingxi?" Her words were very direct. She not only criticized Lin Sun face to face, but also took this opportunity to insinuate that Bai Lingshi was careless in making friends. The other men and women all smiled reservedly, watching the fun. Lin Sun had seen a lot of such undisguised attacks and sarcasm, but he didn't expect that the successor of the pure land of longevity would be so arrogant and condescending. He frowned and realized that Bai Lingshi might have been ostracized and hostile by many of her peers when she was cultivating in the pure land of longevity. A trace of gloom flashed across Bai Lingshi's beautiful face. She stepped forward alone, pulled Lin Sun aside, and transmitted her voice to him, "Don't mind them. They just want to take this opportunity to mock and ridicule me. I won't argue with them now, but I'll make them regret it when there's a chance." At the end of her words, there was a touch of coldness in her voice, and divine light surged in her clear eyes. Obviously, she was also angry. Lin Sun asked, "Do you need my help?" Bai Lingshi smiled, and her voice was filled with confidence. "They're just a bunch of people who think they're better than others. I alone am enough to deal with them. I can ignore the fact that they've ostracized and treated me with hostility in the sect, and I'm too lazy to bother with them. But now, their actions have touched my bottom line. If I don't teach them a lesson, they'll really think that I'm afraid of them." Lin Sun smiled. The girl in front of him was incomparably beautiful and ethereal. She was as confident as she was in the past with her own pride. "It's just that I've wronged you now. You've been ridiculed for no reason," Bai Lingshi said apologetically. Lin Sun said coolly, "I'll take it as a dog barking. You're still as courageous as before." Bai Lingshi also smiled. Her smile was like a flower bud blooming after the rain, with an amazing, fresh, and refined beauty. "Junior sister Lingshi, senior brother Yu, is still waiting for us. It's time to go back," a young man shouted in the distance. Bai Lingshi frowned, and a trace of anger flashed in her clear eyes. How could she not understand that the young man was deliberately interrupting her, and he didn't want her to stay here any longer? "Go ahead. There'll be a chance to meet when the Tao Discussion Lantern Festival begins," Lin Sun said with a smile. Bai Lingshi nodded, pointed at the pavilion of spring and autumn in the distance, and said, "Will you go there later?" "Yes, I'm looking for a friend. You have to be careful. As far as I know, some powerful figures who occupy the pavilion of spring and autumn now regard you as a target, and they intend to trample you under their feet." Bai Lingshi reminded him. "How do you know?" Lin Sun was stunned. Bai Lingshi pursed her red lips into a smile, and her clear eyes were like ripples as she said, "Who doesn't know the name of Demon God Lin in the West Hung world now?" As soon as she finished speaking, she'd already floated away gracefully. Lin Sun touched his nose, but when he saw Bai Feng Lu in the distance, his face suddenly darkened. The old man approached Bai Lingshi stealthily and said eagerly, "Miss Lingshi, are you Child Lin's confidant?" Needless to say, he was digging for big news about Demon God Lin again. However, Before he could ask the result, Lin Sun slapped him on the back of his head and scolded him aside. "Is he your friend?" Bai Lingshi asked curiously. "No, he's just an old man with no moral integrity," Lin Sun said helplessly. Bai Lingshi smiled and gradually went away. Seeing this, Bai Fengliu's eyes lit up, and he murmured in his heart, there's definitely a chance, but I don't know how close they are. Well, when there's a chance, I'll expose this news." He even thought of the title of the news: The Secret Affair Between Demon God Lin and a Beautiful Girl from the Pure Land of Immortality. The more he thought about it, the more excited he became. The Pure Land of Immortality was one of the top ancient orthodoxies in the South Xian world. As the rising demon god Lin in the West Hung world, he could hook up with a descendant from the Pure Land of Immortality. Once the news got out, it was bound to cause a great sensation. At that time, it was unknown how many male cultivators would be envious and jealous, and it was unknown how many ignorant young girls who admired the demon god would have their hearts broken crack. Just when Bai Fengliu was getting more and more complacent, he was hit on the back of his head again, which made him stagger and almost fall flat on his face. Immediately, he saw Lin Sun's murderous and unkind eyes. "If you dare to do anything outrageous, I promise I'll step into your Wind Whisperer clan one day and cut down the golden message tree that you regard as your ancestral treasure." Lin Sun said word by word. He could tell at a glance that this old stick was up to no good. He didn't know what kind of tricks he was up to. With a hiss, Bai Fengliu gasped and his face changed dramatically. He hurriedly said, "I swear to God, I promise I won't spread any groundless rumors." He was indeed worried that once Demon God Lin got angry, he would really cut down the golden message tree of the Wind Whisperer clan. The consequences would be too serious. The two continued to move forward. Before long, Lin Sun finally saw the famous pavilion of spring and autumn in the West Hung world. It was more than 300 meters high and looked as if it was made of glazed jade. From afar, it looked like a white dragon soaring into the sky, majestic and spectacular. The sunlight fell, bathing the pavilion of spring and autumn in a dazzling light. It was sacred and ancient, with a heavy aura of vicissitudes. In front of the gate of the pavilion of spring and autumn, there were some strong figures standing guard, preventing other practitioners from entering. But even then, there were still many cultivators in the surroundings, and all of them were watching. Every time a genius appeared, the surroundings would erupt into an uproar. Obviously, these practitioners were purely here to watch the fun. When Lin Sun arrived nearby, he happened to see Bai Lingshi and the others disappear into the gate of the pavilion of spring and autumn. "It seems that Yu Lingkong, the peerless figure from the pure land of longevity in the South mysterious world, has arrived." Lin Sun realized that if Yu Lingkong had come, he should ask Ji Xingyao, the current saintess of the profound sword school, if she had also come. While he was thinking, Lin Sun suddenly narrowed his eyes. At this moment, a figure suddenly flew out of the gate of the pavilion of spring and autumn and fell to the ground with a bang, causing a cloud of smoke and dust. He looked extremely embarrassed. Chapter 858. The crowd was in an uproar. Someone was actually thrown out of the pavilion of spring and autumn. This was absolutely a big deal. In an instant, all the people looked over in unison. The man was quite handsome, but his hair was disheveled, and the corners of his mouth were stained with blood. He looked extremely embarrassed. "Hey, that seems to be Yu Jiaming, the successor of the Thousand Illusion Dao sect in the Fire Spirit state. My God, this is a genius. How could he be thrown out of the pavilion of spring and autumn? How can Yu Jiaming hold his head high in the future?" The nearby practitioners discussed incessantly. Nowadays, geniuses from different areas of the West Hung world are gathered in Starcliff City, and they're the focus of attention of the world. But today, such an incident has happened. This time, Yu Jiaming may be completely ruined. Many practitioners were shocked. The Fire Spirit state? There isn't even an ancient orthodoxy there. Who is Yu Jiaming? How can he be called a genius? A person like him deserves to be kicked out of the pavilion of spring and autumn. Many practitioners sneered and disagreed. At this moment, Lin Sun's pupils suddenly constricted. He also didn't expect that when he saw you jamming again, it would be under such circumstances. No matter who did it, it was too much, and they didn't conceal the humiliation. They wanted to completely ruin you jamming's reputation. Bah, trash like you want to have a place in the pavilion of spring and autumn? You really overestimate yourself. Get out of here. At this moment, a burly figure like a hill appeared in the pavilion of spring and autumn. He crossed his arms in front of his chest and scolded you jamming with a disdainful expression. It's an expert from the Seashar clan of the Fiend Demon Sea. I vaguely remember that this guy seems to be a retainer of Sha Luchan, the holy son of the Seashar clan. But I didn't expect that even a retainer would be so overbearing and look down on a figure like you jamming. The Fiend Demon Sea, is a place where experts gather, and the Seashar clan is an overlord force. They won't care about you jamming from the fire spirit state. In next to no time, the robust man's identity was recognized, and it caused an uproar in the surroundings. You jamming crawled up from the ground with an extremely livid expression. He stared at the robust man and said, "I've never incurred enmity with your Seashar clan, so why are you targeting and humiliating me like this?" His heart was filled with rage, but he could only forcefully endure it. However, he still couldn't understand why. Looks like you're still not convinced. The robust man walked out with large strides, and his eyes emitted a fierce glow as he stared at you jamming with disdain and said, "You're right, you really haven't offended us. But who asked you to claim to be the friend of that bullshit Devil Godland?" Everyone was stunned. Only then did they realize that you jamming had suffered an undeserved calamity and was implicated by Fiend God Lin. In particular, Lin Sun's eyes became cold all of a sudden. Not until now did he know that you jamming was driven out just because he once said he was his friend. What kind of reason was that? Did he have to suffer such a blow just because he claimed to be his friend? Lin Sun completely understood that the Seashar clan did this to target him. They wanted the whole world to see that whoever was related to him would be suppressed by them. In this way, who would dare to have a relationship with him? Just because of this, Yu Jiaming almost thought he had heard wrong. He couldn't believe it, and his face became gloomy and ugly. What was domineering and arrogant? That was it. In order to deal with Lin Sun, they used such despicable means. It was simply going too far. Oh, it seems that you still don't believe it. Then I'll say it again. Anyone who has a relationship with that bullshit Devil God Lin will be suppressed by my Seashar clan. Speaking of this, the robust man suddenly thought of something. With a fierce look in his eyes, he glanced at the audience and shouted, "Are you here, Devil God Lin? You're just a good-for-nothing. Are you too scared to show up when you see your friend being insulted like this?" The audience was silent. They all realized that the Seashar clan was clearly provoking and forcing Devil God Lin to show up on his own initiative. Don't be impulsive. The Tao Discussion Lantern Contest hasn't started yet. It's not a good time to have a conflict with others. Bai Fenglu hurriedly transmitted his voice to Lin Sun to remind him. However, Lin Sun didn't seem to hear it. From the first time he learned that he was regarded as a target by some talents who wanted to step on him, he was quite annoyed. However, he didn't take these trifles to heart. He had always treated them with a calm attitude. He thought that if someone really dared to jump out to provoke him, he would naturally not be polite. But now he found that he was wrong. The more he ignored them, the more arrogant his opponents would be and make him appear very passive. Even Lin Sun suspected that his attitude of, "I won't attack others if they don't attack me," was regarded as cowardice and concession by many people. Just like in front of him, a retainer of Sha Luchan dared to drive you jamming out of the pavilion of spring and autumn under the watchful eyes of the public and humiliate him in order to attack and stimulate him, trying to force him to show up. This was too rampant. The most important thing was that Yu Jiaming suffered such humiliation just because he claimed to be Lin Sun's friend, which had undoubtedly touched Lin Sun's bottom line. If other enemies wanted to deal with him in the future, they would also do the same and threaten some of his relatives and friends. The consequences would be unimaginable. It seems that Demon Lin is too scared to show up. In the distance, The burly giant was still laughing contemptuously and humiliating Lin Sun in front of countless practitioners. "I advise you to shut up," Yu Jiaming shouted angrily with a livid face. "Aren't you afraid of retribution for your actions?" The burly giant's face darkened, and his expression became fierce and cold. He said coldly, "Retribution? Ridiculous. In this world, the strong are always respected. Your so-called retribution is nothing more than the powerless moaning of the weak." With that, he strode towards Yu Jiaming. "What are you going to do?" Yu Jiaming's face changed. "Didn't you say retribution? I'll let you taste the taste of retribution first. By the way, I'll remind the world that making friends with Demon Lin will never end well." In the laughter, the burly giant's figure rushed out, exuding a monstrous, fierce aura. He raised his palm and fiercely attacked Yu Jiaming. Boom! Space exploded, and it was instantly blasted apart. The terrifying gale from the palm surged with a dazzling, bloody glow, and it covered the heavens and the earth and enveloped the surroundings. Many practitioners gasped and realized the horror of this burly giant. Although he was just a retainer, he was extremely powerful. At this moment, Lin Sun moved. He took a step and disappeared in an instant. He had decided to fight without any scruples. Today, even if God came, he couldn't stop his determination to fight. Whoosh! The next moment, Lin Sun's figure appeared in front of Yu Jiaming. He waved his sleeve. In the roar, the clear light spread all over the sky and instantly dissolved the bloody palm wind. Lin Sun, Yu Jiaming was stunned. He thought he was doomed to suffer this time. He never thought that at the last moment, Lin Sun would come from the sky. Not far away, the pupils of the burly giant constricted. Demon Lin? He really came. And he was in the field all along? Demon Lin. "Oh my God, Demon Lin has appeared," the nearby practitioners exclaimed. Whether it was the beings of other clans or human practitioners, all of them became extremely excited. Demon Lin. This was a ferocious figure that rose like a comet in the West Sea world. He'd once fought fiercely with the mysterious masked young girl in the sky and staged an unparalleled battle. He'd once killed 4 half-step king tiers of the Black Sea Tengu clan by himself and broke out of the encirclement. It was even rumored that he was related to a mysterious woman who was like an ancient empress, which led to the destruction of the Black Sea Tengu clan's residence in the primitive Cloud Mountain. Many days ago, there had been many peerless geniuses who wanted to suppress Demon Lin. They thought that he deceived the world and didn't deserve his reputation. For example, Zhongli Wuji was a peerless figure who was like a devil incarnate. He once said in front of the world that as long as Demon Lin appeared at the Tao Discussion Lantern Festival, he would be the first to suppress Demon Lin. For example, Qing Lian the saintess of the Cyan Phoenix clan, even said that she wanted Demon Lin to publicly repent and admit that he didn't deserve his reputation. Although all of this caused Demon God Lin to be criticized, it also indirectly caused his reputation to spread further. In the current West Sea world, the name Demon Lin was known by almost everyone, but no one expected that Demon Lin would appear at this moment. All of a sudden, the emotions of all the practitioners present seemed to be ignited, and they became completely excited. Only Bai Fenglu smiled bitterly. This gathering of geniuses attracted the attention of the entire West Sea world. It was definitely unwise to appear at this time. However, Bai Fenglu also understood that Lin Sun must be enraged at this moment. If it were him, he wouldn't be able to stand it. That Sea Shark Clan powerhouse was too much. "You're that bullshit Demon Lin? You finally appeared, but you don't look like much. Let me see how capable you are." The burly man was taken aback for a moment before he grinned hideously. He raised his hand and produced a blood-colored halberd. He slashed at Lin Sun's head. Boom! A shocking blood-colored light splashed from the halberd, so dazzling that one could not open their eyes. It was too dazzling. It was like a divine rainbow crossing the sky, killing everything in its path. How terrifying! He's more than twice as powerful as before. Could he have been hiding his strength all along and only used his killer move now? Many cultivators' expressions changed as they retreated. They realized that the burly man was not as arrogant as he appeared. He had been holding back his strength, and only used his true strength now that Demon Lin had appeared. From this, it could be seen that although the burly man was verbally disdainful of Demon Lin, he was not careless when he attacked. However, in the face of such a ferocious and shocking attack, Lin Sun stood motionless. He merely reached out and grabbed. With a loud rumble, the terrifying blood-red light directly exploded and turned into a rain of light that drifted down. Lin Sun's slender and fair hand firmly grasped the sharp blade of the halberd. Chapter 859. Lin Sun firmly grasped the dazzling blade of the halberd with one hand. It was so casual and calm that it was like grabbing the wings of a butterfly. This scene was so shocking that it immediately caused a burst of exclamations in the field. All the practitioners widened their eyes in disbelief. The burly man was called Cell. Although he was just a retainer of Sha Luchan, his combat effectiveness was obvious to all. Otherwise, Yu Jianming, who was famous in the fire spirit state, wouldn't have been thrown out of the pavilion of spring and autumn. Boom! Cell's face changed dramatically. He let out a thunderous roar, and his towering body erupted with terrifying blood chi, struggling fiercely to resist. However, no matter how hard he tried, the halberd didn't move at all. It was firmly grasped by Lin Sun. From a distance, Lin Sun was standing there, holding the halberd with one hand, while Cell's cheeks were flushed. The muscles of his towering body were bulging, and his blood chi was surging. He seemed to be extremely strained. Oh no! In an instant, Cell's face changed again as he realized how terrifying Demon Lin was. However, when he was about to abandon the halberd and change his move, Lin Sun shook his wrist and grabbed the halberd, swung it, and smashed it down fiercely. Bang! With just one blow, Cell was directly smashed to the ground. His shoulder bones were broken, and blood spattered as he screamed. Even if he was peerless in the reincarnation developing realm, he was destined to be no match for Lin Sun. Lin Sun had set foot on the top and could be called peerless, while he was far from being able to do so. There was a sound of gasping in the field. All the practitioners could see that if Lin Sun chopped down with the blade of the halberd this time, Cell would have been cut in half. Slaughter roared angrily. His eyes were bloodshot, and he was extremely arrogant. He jumped up from the ground and rushed at Lin Sun with a terrifying light all over his body. Clang! Lin Sun held the halberd, and the blade rolled back like a falling galaxy, bursting with peerless sharpness. With a bang, Cell was suppressed again. Cell staggered and fell to the ground. The snow-white blade had cut open his chest, and blood poured out like a tide. In an instant, the ground was dyed red, and a shocking pool of blood was formed. Just one strike. The nearby Shoujo were shocked. Everyone was shocked. A top figure of the Sea Shar clan, a tyrannical figure at the reincarnation development realm, had been suppressed by Demon God Lin with a wave of his hand. This was too shocking. Cell let out an incomparably mournful scream. Puff! With a sweep of his halberd, Lin Sun chopped off his head. From the beginning to the end, he didn't even say a word of nonsense. His actions were straightforward, powerful, and direct. Whoosh! Cell's body transformed into an incomparably huge sea shark, and his blood instantly soaked the ground nearby like a waterfall. It was dark red and glaring. The scene was deathly silent. Everyone was trembling because they felt an extremely arrogant killing intent emanating from Lin Sun, and it was like a landslide and a tsunami that spread in all directions. This was the entrance of the pavilion of spring and autumn, where countless cultivators were gathered. However, no one could have imagined that Demon God Lin would be so domineering and direct as soon as he appeared, killing a tyrannical figure of the Sea Shar clan on the spot. Earlier, Cell had been extremely domineering and arrogant. He had blasted Yu Jianming out of the pavilion of spring and autumn and humiliated him to the extreme. He wanted to use this to force Demon God Lin to show himself, which made many Shoujo feel that he had gone too far and was an eyesore. Now that Demon God Lin had appeared, Cell had been unable to resist and had been killed directly. This shocked all the Shoujo present, and they couldn't help but sigh with emotion. As expected of demon god Lin, whose name had shaken the West Hung world, not only was he full of courage, but he was also incomparably powerful. Yu Jiaming was also stunned. He found it hard to believe, and he also felt unspeakable guilt. He stepped forward and said, "Lin Sun, I'm sorry. If it weren't for me," Lin Sun interrupted him, "it's not your fault. After all, they were only targeting me. I should be the one apologizing for causing you to suffer an undeserved disaster." Speaking of this, Lin Sun smiled. "What's more, since you regard me as a friend, how can I stand by and watch my friend in trouble? Demon God Lin, you're as bold as the rumors say. However, you killed one of my retainers just like that. Are you tired of living?" Suddenly, an indifferent and cold voice sounded in the pavilion of spring and autumn. A tall and sturdy young man in a golden robe strode out. His eyes were long and narrow like knives, sharp and frighteningly sharp. He had a head of long blue hair, and every move he made had a momentum that could swallow up the whole world. It was Sha Luchan, the current holy son of the Sea Shark clan. When they saw him appear, there was a commotion in the field, and all the Xiujia's heart trembled. Sha Luchan was an extremely famous peerless figure among the younger generation of the West Hung world. He was known as one of the top 10 heavenly talents of the evil demon Sea, and his combat strength was superb. It was said that he had cultivated the secret method of the ancient Buddhist sect since he was a child, but his nature was violent and bloodthirsty. There were at least 1,000, if not 800 strong people who had died in his hands. Along with Sha Luchan, a group of young men and women from the Sea Shark clan appeared. When they saw Cell's corpse lying on the street, their faces became gloomy, and they looked at Cell with undisguised murderous intent. Not only that, in the pavilion of spring and autumn, figures appeared one after another. There were men and women, and all of them were extraordinary and dazzling. They could be called dragons and phoenixes among men. There was no doubt that these young men and women who were able to enter and exit the pavilion of spring and autumn must be heavenly talents from all over the West Hung world. The first true disciple of the Jade Void Temple, Mu Jianting. The first true disciple of the Thunder Clan, Lei Qianjun. Li Qinghuan, a heavenly talent of the young generation of the Tsang Mei Taoism sect. Exclamations sounded in the field, and all the Xiujia were seething with excitement. At this moment, dazzling figures whose names shook the West Hung world appeared one after another. In the past, it was difficult to see even one of them, but now they were all gathered in front of the pavilion of spring and autumn. The scene was absolutely shocking. There were also some heavenly talents. Although their names were not called out, their demeanor was not inferior to the others, and it was amazing. For example, among the descendants of the Palace of Miluo from the Earth Imperial Universe, there was a girl in a purple dress who was extremely outstanding. Her forehead was bright and clean, and her clear eyes were full of wisdom. She was surrounded by a round and holy Taoist light, looking mysterious and transcendent. It was not uncommon to see someone like the girl in a purple dress. For a moment, the scene in front of the pavilion of spring and autumn was like a gathering of stars and heavenly talents. It was too much for the Xiujia nearby to take in. At first, Bai Fenglu was still worried about Lin's situation, but now his eyes lit up. Out of instinct, he took out a message leaf and began to record the scene in front of him. The old fool was very dedicated to his work. He looked excited as if he had just found some big news, and he almost danced with joy. All of this happened in the span of a few breaths. Lin Sun's expression didn't change at all when he saw the scene. He even sensed that there were still some extremely powerful people in the pavilion of spring and autumn. Although they didn't show up, they were still investigating the situation with their spiritual awareness. However, Lin Sun didn't care about them anymore. He had had enough. From the moment he decided to kill Cell, his state of mind had completely changed. He had nothing to worry about and nothing to be afraid of. "I think it's you who are tired of living." Lin Sun stood there alone in surprise. Behind him was the huge body of Cell lying on the ground. He stared at Sha Luchan with cold eyes and said, "Didn't you clamor to suppress me? Now, I'm standing here to give you a chance." His words were calm, but they were sonorous and domineering, which made many Xiujia's blood boil and excited. In the face of so many heavenly talents, Lin Sun was alone, but he was not afraid at all. Such courage was rare among the younger generation. Ha ha, you are just a deceiver. Do you think you can do whatever you want with just an undeserved reputation? You don't know what's good for you. Sha Luchan laughed. His eyes were as sharp as blades, and his whole body exuded an oppressive power of blood, which deterred all the people present. Some other heavenly talents also smiled and chuckled. Obviously, they didn't take Lin's words seriously. A young man in a jade robe even scoffed and teased. I say, brother, the world calls you Demon God Lin. Don't tell me you really think of yourself as an invincible demon god? In the pavilion of spring and autumn, there are peerless figures from all regions of the West Hung world. Don't you think you are ridiculous to say such words? There was a hint of sarcasm in his voice. Suddenly, there was a burst of laughter in the field. It's not just laughable, it's simply disappointing. In the past, I thought that the so-called Demon God Lin was extraordinary, and I even suspected that he had 3 heads and 6 arms. But now, it would seem that it's simply disappointing. How dare such a person call himself Demon Lin? No wonder he is criticized and despised by so many people. In my opinion, he is indeed no different from a deceiver. In the field, some men and women spoke casually, and their words and actions revealed a sense of pride and conceit. They commented on Lin Sun with obvious contempt and hostility. This caused all the spectating cultivators in the surroundings to be shocked. A few days ago, they'd already heard that numerous geniuses of West Ocean Dimension couldn't bear the sight of Demon God Lin, and they looked down upon Demon God Lin. They felt that Demon God Lin didn't live up to his reputation and was just a figure that deceived the world. Some peerless figures even said that if Demon Lin dared to appear, they would suppress him and ruin his reputation. Originally, these were all rumors, and many practitioners were skeptical. But now it seemed that these rumors were not groundless, but true. Just like at this moment, many geniuses were looking at Demon God Lin with mockery and disdain. Seeing Lin Sun being condemned, Sha Luchan curled his lips and said indifferently, Lin Sun, I'll give you a chance. Now, kneel down and apologize to me, and I won't care about your crime of killing Cell. What do you think? This was undoubtedly a humiliation to Lin Sun. He wanted to trample and destroy Lin Sun's self-esteem in front of everyone. Killing someone was just a matter of nodding his head, but Sha Yochan's words were too vicious. At this moment, a cold, killing intent flashed in the depths of Lin Sun's black eyes. However, before he could speak, the young man in the jade robe who had mocked him before spoke first. Chapter 860. There was a moment of silence in the field. Many practitioners were shocked. Could it be that those geniuses were going to deal with Demon Lin before the Tao Discussion Lantern Festival began? The words of the young man in the jade robe were light and casual, but they revealed endless madness and eagerness. Originally, Cell's death had nothing to do with him, but he was very active. This undoubtedly proved that he wanted to take this opportunity to step on Demon Lin and boost his power. Child Lin, this guy is called Tang Chuan. He comes from an ancient orthodoxy, Pang Bo sword sect. He can be called a genius in swordsmanship. The true sword of madness he mastered can be called an ancient, unique skill with terrifying power. But this guy's character is not good. When he was in his teens, he hooked up with his brother and sister-in-law. Although this matter was later blocked by the Tang family, there is no wall in the world that does not have ears. I happen to know about this. At the same time, Bai Fengliu's voice sounded in Lin Sun's ears. Although this old man was a little shameless, he was after all the top secret agent of the Wind Whisperer clan and had a lot of unknown information. Lin Sun looked at the young man in the jade robe with a touch of coldness in his eyes. Such a shameless guy dared to jump out so impatiently. Did he really think that Lin Sun was a soft persimmon that could be bullied at will? Courting death. Lin Sun spat out these words lightly. This made Tang Chuan chuckle, but his eyes were filled with killing intent that was incomparably terrifying. Since Taoism peer Tang Chuan is in such a good mood, I don't want to spoil your mood. I'll leave this guy to you. Sha Luchan said in a low voice. He was very happy to facilitate this matter. With Tang Chuan's help, he could also test the background of Demon Lin. Junior sister Lingxi, it turns out that your friend is Demon Lin. No wonder you praised him so much before. But it seems that this Demon Lin is in a very bad situation. In front of the window on the 9th floor of the Pavilion of Spring and Autumn, a successor of the Pure Land of Longevity chuckled. More than bad, he has become a street rat that everyone wants to beat. This shows that this Demon Lin is not as powerful as the rumors say. I'm afraid he is really a deceiver. Junior sister Lingxi, you must be careful. Don't be deceived by this fellow. As the saying goes, you may know a person for a long time, but not his heart. If others find out that you're friends with such a person, I'm afraid it'll have a very negative impact on your reputation. Junior sister Lingxi, you can't help this guy. After all, you are the successor of the Pure Land of Longevity. After all, you are the successor of the Longevity Land. World, what will those in the world think of us? The other men and women of the Pure Land of Lingxi also spoke, full of ridicule. A haze flashed across by Lingshi's brows, but she quickly regained her composure. Her delicate and pretty features remained unruffled as she replied indifferently, "You're wrong. He doesn't need my help at all. Just don't make a fuss later." The crowd burst into laughter. They thought that Lingxi was putting on a brave front and was unwilling to admit to such a shameful thing. Demon Lin, come. Let's take this opportunity to have a duel. Let the whole world see if you are a deceiver or if you are truly capable. Outside the gate of the Pavilion of Spring and Autumn, Tang Chuan laughed and strode forward. His sleeves fluttered in the wind. His cold eyes were like swords, emitting sharp beams of light. He stood there casually, releasing a wave of madness. Boom! His aura became even more terrifying. His clothes and long hair fluttered in the wind like an unsheathed peerless sword. He said slowly, "But I'll say this first. If you lose, the consequences will be unbearable. You may not even be able to kneel and beg for mercy." Many of the geniuses nearby were surprised. They sensed that Tang Chuan's aura was unusual. It was indeed rare in the reincarnation developing realm. The onlooking cultivators widened their eyes and held their breath. Their hearts were pounding violently. There was no doubt that a duel between geniuses was about to take place. In the face of so much criticism and contempt, could Demon Lin really display the powerful combat strength that was rumored to be? Since Tang Chuan, a genius of the younger generation from the Weeping Sword sect, dared to attack so forcefully, did he have the ability to kill Demon Lin? The atmosphere instantly became incomparably tense, and it was as if swords were drawn. In the Pavilion of Spring and Autumn, some peerless figures who had not shown themselves stopped what they were doing and focused their attention here. If one looked down from the sky, they would find that with the Pavilion of Spring and Autumn as the center, there were many cultivators rushing over from all directions of Starcliff City. Obviously, the news of Demon Lin's appearance and his confrontation with a group of geniuses had spread like wildfire and was spreading at an alarming speed. Yu Jiaming was deeply worried and ashamed. He thought that it was because of him that Lin Sun was forced to show himself and fall into such a dangerous situation. Bai Fenglu watched the situation nervously, holding a thick stack of news leaves in his hand. He was ready to record everything that was about to happen and not miss a single detail. Sha Luchan and the other geniuses looked on with different expressions. Bai Lingshi stood in front of the window on the 9th floor. Her clear eyes were calm, and her face was as still as water, ethereal and ethereal. At this time, Lin Sun was as calm as before. His black eyes were cold. In the face of Tang Chuan's arrogant provocation, he only said one sentence. "These are your last words?" Last words. The crowd of cultivators clicked their tongues. Demon Lin was indeed famous for his courage. In the face of such a situation, he was still so domineering and direct. It was surprising and shocking. Tang Chuan's face darkened, and he let out a wild laugh. "Based on these words, I will definitely kill you today." Clang! Amidst the sound of the sword, a dazzling golden spirit sword soared into the sky and swept into Tang Chuan's palm. In an instant, his entire body was filled with a terrifying and fierce aura that spread out and caused the void to wail. Many cultivators felt a stinging pain in their eyes. This was indeed terrifying. Just the might alone was enough to show that Tang Chuan's mastery of the way of the sword had already reached an astonishing level. This is the power of real sword of madness of Xuanbu school. It is an ancient inheritance of swordsmanship. Judging from momentum, Tang Chuan has mastered the essence of this sword scripture. It's amazing. Some older cultivators commented with shock in their eyes. Chop! Tang Chuan strode out like an ancient swordsman. His sword intent was surging. A golden spiritual sword suddenly turned into a 300-meter-long rainbow, crossing the void and suddenly chopping down. The sharpness was indeed amazing and peerless. He seemed to be full of arrogance, but he was actually quite scheming. He knew that in front of so many geniuses, if he didn't show his real skills, he would be despised by others even if he defeated Demon Lin. Therefore, as soon as he made his move, he displayed the profound meaning of real sword of madness, intending to kill Lin Sun on the spot with a thunderous momentum. Many people in the field were retreating quickly, not daring to stand here. Tang Chuan's sword intent was too strong, wanton and terrible, covering the whole world. Once approached, the consequences would be unimaginable. However, something surprising happened. Lin Sun looked calm and composed. He just took a step forward, and in the process, an unparalleled, dazzling light bloomed like a snow-white sun. Where Lin Sun stepped, an ice dragon, which seemed to be made of ice and snow, rose into the air. It was thousands of meters high, holding its head high and roaring. Many cultivators' expressions became sluggish, and they were overwhelmed with shock. They almost thought that a true ancient ice serpent divine beast had appeared. That divine might was too terrifying, and it was like a vast ocean that completely covered this place. Boom! Along with an enormous bang, the golden ray of sword insight directly collapsed into pieces and transformed into a rain of light that dispersed into the surroundings. On the other hand, Tang Chuan's entire body was swept by the ice-horned dragon's tail, and his figure was blasted flying with a bang, while scarlet-red blood sprayed from his mouth. God! All the cultivators were stunned. What happened? Tang Chuan, with such monstrous sword intent, was defeated as soon as he entered the field? This was unbelievable. Demon God Lin had merely taken a step forward, yet he had sent a sword Dao prodigy from the Weeping Bow sword sect flying? How terrible it was! Sha Luchan and other talents also narrowed their eyes in surprise. They didn't expect that Tang Chuan would perform so badly at the beginning of the battle. Tang Chuan himself was a little confused. He couldn't accept that he was defeated as soon as they met. He felt like he was dreaming. The so-called heaven's chosen ones are like this? Don't you feel ashamed to clamor to suppress me? Lin Sun's words were full of disdain, and he attacked Tang Chuan rudely. You're courting death. Tang Chuan was angry and ashamed. Under the watchful eyes of the public, he had threatened to kill Lin Sun. Even if Lin Sun knelt down and begged for mercy, he would not let him go. However, in the blink of an eye, it had been defeated, and countless gazes had even seen it. All of this caused his expression to instantly turn livid, and he was furious to the extreme. Clang! He attacked again. The golden spiritual sword swept through the air and performed endless wonderful scenes. There were gods and demons roaring in disasters like landslides and tsunamis. The sword hummed like a tide, terrifying and frightening. That's more like it. Sha Youchan's frown eased a lot. Other practitioners nearby were also shocked. They realized that Tang Chuan was completely angry. He attacked without reservation and completely released the foundation of a young talent. It's really good that there's such a genius in Shihing territory. In the pavilion of spring and autumn, a successor of the pure land of longevity commented. The other talents present also made comparisons and comments in their hearts. Most of them thought that Tang Chuan's performance at the moment was worthy of his title as the young talent of Weeping Bowsword School. However, in the next moment, No matter if it was the prodigies or the cultivators present, all of them revealed a trace of dumbfounded expression. Boom! In the face of such a terrible attack, Lin Sun waved his sleeve, and an ancient seal rose into the air. The image of the divine beast Swanee emerged vaguely, emitting a terrifying divine brilliance that could suppress the 8 extremities and destroy the universe. In an instant, with a bang, Tang Chuan was smashed to the ground by the seal amid the exploding sword radiance. The earth cracked and the soil splashed. Tang Chuan lay there like a flattened toad, blood spurting from his mouth and nose. No one knew how many bones in his body were broken, and his body twitched incessantly. Hiss! The sound of people inhaling cold air rose and fell in succession. They were all dumbfounded. Many talents were shocked. They had completely judged that in terms of combat strength, Tang Chuan and Demon God Lin were not at the same level at all. Chapter 861. Tang Chuan and Demon God Lin were indeed not on the same level. Otherwise, how could he have been defeated so badly? The battle had just begun, but he had been suppressed with a flip of his hand. This was no different from an ant trying to shake a tree. The crowd was shocked, and the sound of people gasping could be heard everywhere. In the past, the rumors had only exaggerated Demon God Lin's power, and many people were skeptical. After all, they had never heard of such a person in the Western Hung domain before this. It was inevitable that people would doubt the veracity of the rumors. But now, with Cell's death and Tang Chuan's crushing defeat, everyone realized that even if the rumors were exaggerated, Demon God Lin's combat strength was absolutely powerful. Sha Youchan's expression changed slightly, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. He had originally planned to use Tang Chuan to test Lin Sun's strength, but he did not expect such an outcome. Tang Chuan had been suppressed before he could completely test Lin Sun's strength. This undoubtedly proved that Demon God Lin could be regarded as a top-notch talent, even among the heavenly sons. As for whether he could be called peerless, it was still uncertain. Some of the heavenly sons who had scorned and ridiculed Lin Sun had the same thoughts as Sha Luchan. None of them had expected Demon God Lin to be so powerful. Bai Fenglu was very excited. He had engraved everything that had happened just now in his mind. But soon, he became depressed again, because he found that many of the practitioners present had also used different methods to record everything that had happened just now. This also meant that the news that he, Bai Fenglu, had obtained was no longer fresh. It was impossible for him to take the lead and achieve results that he was satisfied with. Yu Jiaming was quite emotional. When he first met Lin Sun on Purple Ox Mountain, he realized that Lin Sun was extraordinary. But he did not expect that in less than half a year, Lin Sun had grown to such an extent. It was really too heaven-defying. He went just like that. On the 9th floor of Spring and Autumn Pavilion, some descendants of the pure land of longevity widened their eyes in disbelief. Senior brothers and sisters, we agreed not to make a fuss. In front of the window, Bai Lingshi was dressed in snow-white clothes. Her beautiful face was still indifferent, but there was a hint of mockery at the corner of her mouth. She had expected this, but she was also a little surprised. Compared with the time when he was in Xiao Empire, Lin Sun was totally different now. I merely defeated an ordinary character among the geniuses. What's there to fuss about? The coquettish woman draped in a fiery crane cloak snorted in disdain. If it were any successor of our pure land of longevity, they would be able to do it. This doesn't prove how powerful Fiend God Lin is. It's just that his opponent is too weak. That's right. Senior sister Yin Xia's words make sense. The others also chimed in. Bai Lingshi didn't comment, but she thought to herself, if Tang Chuan is really so weak, how could he be regarded as a heavenly talent? How could he have the right to enter the pavilion of spring and autumn? But then again, even Bai Lingshi couldn't deny that among the younger generation of the pure land of longevity, there were plenty of people who could defeat Tang Chuan. Strictly speaking, in the eyes of an ancient and transcendent colossus like the blessed lands of longevity, someone like Tang Chuan could not be considered as a true prodigy. He could only be considered as one of the top figures among the younger generation. The place was silent. Only Tang Chuan, who was lying in the pit and twitching incessantly, was groaning in pain. He was so badly injured that he couldn't even get up. Compared with his arrogant attitude just now, the contrast was too great. I know I'm guilty. The ancient sages are right. How could a lowly person like you dare to despise and provoke me? At this moment, Lin Sun was still calm and composed. His black eyes were cold and calm, but in the eyes of others, he had a disdainful and domineering spirit. I heard that when you were young, you seduced your brother and sister-in-law shamelessly. That's against human ethics and despicable. How could a person like you be called a heavenly talent in vain? As soon as Lin Sun's words came out, it immediately caused an uproar. Everyone's expression became strange, and the way they looked at Tang Chuan became different. Seducing his brother and sister-in-law was a great sin. If it was true, it was indeed outrageous. You, don't slander me. When Tang Chuan, who was already suppressed and filled with endless humiliation, heard this, he was so angry that his body stiffened. He spat out a mouthful of blood and directly fainted. Everyone sighed in their hearts when they saw this. Regardless of whether Tang Chuan had done something that went against human morality when he was young, merely his crushing defeat today was bound to make it difficult for him to raise his head high in the West Hung region in the future. In other words, Tang Chuan, a heavenly talent, was destined to be discredited and removed from the ranks of heavenly talents after this defeat. In the future, anyone who talked about Tang Chuan would inevitably talk about his defeat at the hands of demon god Lin, which was undoubtedly a shadow in his heart. Unless Tang Chuan could rise up one day and defeat Lin Sun, today's defeat was destined to be an unshakable shame that would accompany him on his path of cultivation. It's your turn. While everyone was sighing with emotion, Lin Sun turned around and fixed his cold eyes on Sha Luchan. Demon god Lin took the initiative to attack. This surprised and shocked many people, but they also felt an unprecedented excitement. This was the legendary demeanor of a demon god. Although Lin Sun's methods were domineering and disdainful, he had never taken the initiative. But now he was going to attack and point his spear at Sha Luchan. There's going to be a good show. Sha Luchan is not someone Tang Chuan can compare to. He is a true, peerless heavenly talent who has long been famous in the West Hung territory. His combat strength is outstanding, and he has the spirit of being invincible. The Tao Discussion Lantern Festival hasn't even started, but because of the appearance of Demon God Lin, such an unparalleled battle is going to break out. It's too surprising. I wonder if Demon God Lin can still be as domineering as before. The scene was in a complete uproar. At this time, more and more cultivators heard the news and rushed over, blocking the nearby streets. In the distance, there were even practitioners standing on top of tall buildings or in the void, paying close attention to the situation here. This was normal. In the past Tao Discussion Lantern festivals, who dared to cause trouble in front of the pavilion of spring and autumn, they were tired of living. But today was obviously different. Demon God Lin, who had caused a stir in the West Hung territory recently, had appeared and confronted a group of heavenly talents in front of the pavilion of spring and autumn. This was a major event that could shake the West Hung territory, so it was difficult not to attract attention. The scene was in an uproar, and Sha Liuchan's expression turned cold. Previously, Lin Sun had killed his squire, and he had not settled the score. He had never thought that Lin Sun would dare to take the initiative to declare war. This was undoubtedly a provocation to his dignity. Do you really think that no one can stop you after you defeat Tang Chuan? Sha Liuchan's voice was cold, as if spilling out from an ice cave, with a penetrating murderous intent. A terrifying blood energy suddenly surged out from his tall body and spread out, causing the uproar in the surroundings to come to an abrupt halt in an instant. Many cultivators felt a chill run down their spines as if they had fallen into an icy pit, and they felt extremely oppressed. This was a peerless heavenly talent. Just his aura alone was enough to shock the world and suppress the universe. He had an aura and style that far surpassed his peers. You're courting death. Hurry up and kneel down to atone for your sins. The experts of the Sishar clan beside Shah Luchan all shouted with a cold expression. They looked at Lin's son as if they were staring at a dead man. This time, your friend is in trouble. Shah Luchan is very strong. If we fight with him, it will be very difficult for us to win. Perhaps only senior brother Yulinkong can easily suppress him. Demon Lin is going to suffer. Junior sister Lingshi, don't rush to help him later. We don't want to be implicated. In the pavilion of spring and autumn, the successors of the pure land of longevity all spoke. Their expressions had regained their superior aura with a hint of sarcasm. Let's wait and see. While Lingshi was calm, some heavenly talents near the pavilion of spring and autumn showed an expression of watching the fun and looked at Lin's son with a touch of pity in their eyes. Did this guy really think that he could challenge the peerless heavenly talent after defeating Tang Chuan? Not to mention Lin's son, even some other peerless figures in the West Hung territory would not easily provoke another peerless figure before the Tao Discussion Lantern Festival began. And Shah Luchan was undoubtedly such a person. There were also some heavenly talents who were a little indignant and unhappy because of Tang Chuan's defeat. At this moment, when they saw Lin's son pointing his spear at Shah Luchan, they could not help but gloat. This undoubtedly meant that Lin Sun's forceful suppression of Tang Chuan just now did not bring much vigilance and fear to them. This was normal. Anyone who could be regarded as a heavenly talent by the world had far more pride and conceit than ordinary people. Their state of mind was naturally strong, and naturally they would not be easily affected. Perhaps there is someone in this world who can defeat me, but it is absolutely not you. Lin Sun ignored the noisy discussion around him. His black eyes were like lightning as he locked on Shah Luchan. His words were casual, but still as forceful as before. Haha, you really don't know what's good for you. Shah Luchan smiled, but his smile was full of killing intent, which made people scalp numb. He could no longer control the killing intent in his heart. However, before he could make a move, he saw a commotion in the distant street, and a thunderous voice rang out. Friends of the Sishar clan, please don't do anything. The young master of the Zhongli clan is coming at full speed. Please let our young master kill Demon Lin. With the voice, a giant beast moved across the void like a mountain and galloped over. Its roar shook the sky, and the smell of blood assailed the nostrils. Some practitioners along the way could not avoid it in time, and were forcibly knocked away, screaming. This was a black jade dragon elephant. Its eyes were as big as millstones, and its 4 hooves were like stone pillars. It was ferocious and incomparably arrogant. On its back, a group of young men and women was rushing over. All the heroes in the field were shocked. They hurriedly dodged and made way for them. Chapter 862. The Zhongli Clan. It was an ancient and renowned clan that could stand shoulder to shoulder with those ancient orthodoxies in the West Hung world. Zhongli Wuji was the current holy son of this clan. He had long been famous in the West Hung world and was notorious for his ferocity. He was absolutely a peerless and ruthless figure in the younger generation. A while ago, when Lin Sun had just risen to fame and shocked the West Hung world, Zhongli Wuji had declared in front of everyone that if Demon God Lin dared to appear at the Tao Discussion Lantern Festival, he, Zhongli Wuji, would be the first to kill Demon God Lin. Now, although Zhongli Wuji hadn't arrived yet, his clansmen had rushed over in the form of black jade dragon elephants, intending to interfere in this matter. This sudden turn of events caused everyone present to be shocked, and they couldn't help but look over. Even the geniuses present frowned. They hadn't expected that the Zhongli clan would interfere at a time like this. Moreover, they were so domineering that they wanted Shah Luchan to give up the opportunity to kill Demon God Lin. Shah Luchan was already displeased to be interrupted in such a way. When he heard the Zhongli clan's domineering stance, it caused his eyes to emit a cold light, and he was furious. However, another unexpected event occurred before he could even react to it. Screech! A clear cry reverberated through the 9 heavens and rumbled through the surroundings. In the sky, a group of men and women riding on an enormous and majestic cyan Luan whistled over. This group of people was even more domineering than the Zhongli clan. They flew over the heads of the cultivators in the form of cyan yuan and descended. Many cultivators were displeased. They felt that such actions were insulting, but when they saw the identity of the newcomers, their expressions changed drastically and they didn't dare say another word. The Cyan Yuan clan. This was one of the top 5 clans in the West Hung world. It was a colossus among the variant beings, and it wasn't inferior to the Zhongli clan at all. Fortunately, we're not too late. We're a step ahead of Zhongli Wuji. A voice that was pleasing to the ear like a wind chime resounded. On the back of the Cyan Yuan, a beautiful young girl with beautiful hair coiled into a bun walked down first. She was indeed very beautiful and very young, but her expression was too cold and aloof. There was a sense of pride that was branded into her bones that caused others to not dare look at her directly. Qing Lianer. The cultivator's expressions changed again. This was the current holy virgin of the Cyan Phoenix clan. She was extremely talented. Her name had shaken the world a few years ago. Many cultivators in West Hung Dimension felt that Qing Lian even possessed resources and reserves that could rival the disciple of the profound Inquisition sword school, Ji Xingyao. There was no doubt that Qing Lian was also a peerless figure. Disregarding strength, just based on reputation alone, she was superior to Sha Luchan and Zhongli Wuji. As soon as Qing Lian arrived, her icy cold eyes fell on Lin Sun, and the corners of her mouth curled up slightly with undisguised pride. She said calmly and casually, "Are you Lin Sun, who is regarded as the Devil Lin by the world? Very good, you finally appeared. Back then, I said that I wanted you to kneel down in front of everyone to repent and atone for your sins, to admit that you don't live up to your name. Do you understand?" There wasn't a single cultivator present who didn't know these words, and it had even shaken the entire West Hung Jia a while ago. However, the meaning behind these words carried a sense of contempt and humiliation towards the Devil Lin Sun. Yet now, Qing Lian had spoken of this to Demon God Lin in front of so many people. This undoubtedly seemed to be too direct, and she didn't conceal the feeling of humiliation at all, causing all the cultivators to be extremely shocked in their hearts. Lin Sun suddenly smiled. He looked Qing Lianer up and down, and then he said thoughtfully, "So you're that Qing Lianer? You really are a bitch." Everyone's eyes widened, and they were dumbfounded. They almost didn't dare believe their ears. Qing Lian was very impolite just now. The moment she arrived, she attacked the Devil Lin Sun. However, it was obvious that the Devil Lin Sun wasn't someone to be trifled with. He was even more domineering than her, and he directly called her a bitch. Even those geniuses couldn't help but have their lips twitch imperceptibly. Who in the world dared to scold the current holy virgin of the Cyan Phoenix clan like this? Bai Lingshi smiled. She understood Lin Sun. Back in the Xiao Empire, he dared to force Ling Tianho to kneel. There was nothing in this world that he didn't dare to do. Just calling her a bitch was already considered a light punishment. However, the descendants of the pure land of longevity didn't think so. They all frowned and revealed looks of disgust. They thought that Lin Sun's words were too vulgar and unbearable. However, they automatically ignored the fact that Qing Lian's words just now were filled with undisguised humiliation. Qing Lian's clear eyes emitted a terrifying cold light. She didn't expect to be called a bitch in front of so many people. She was the current holy virgin of the Cyan Phoenix clan. Since she started cultivating, she was like the bright moon in the sky. Countless people chased after her, and she could get whatever she wanted. When had she ever been slandered like this? It seems like you won't repent. Killing intent surged in Qing Lian's heart. She stepped forward, and her slender figure emitted a terrifying divine light. Her aura was terrifying. She had decided to kill Lin Sun to wash away the humiliation. Wait. However, just at this moment, the Zhongli clan members riding the black jade dragon elephant shouted and stepped forward to stop her. "This demonic god Lin is my clan's young master's target. Young miss, please take a step back and let him out." "How about it?" A capable young man spoke. He was called Zhongli Kuei, and he could be considered to be an extraordinary figure in the Zhongli clan. How audacious! Even if Zhongli Wuji came here himself, he wouldn't dare speak like this. All of you better get out of my way. Qing Lian was furious in her heart. Her clear eyes were like bolts of lightning, and her aura became even more terrifying. It caused the expressions of Zhongli Kuei and the others to change. Cyan Phoenix Clan, you've gone too far. On what basis do you want us to make way? They were extremely dissatisfied and refused to back down. Enough! Suddenly, Sha Luchan shouted loudly. His expression was icy cold while his sky blue hair fluttered in the wind, and his voice revealed boundless rage. What do you think I, Sha Luchan, am? How dare you interfere with the prey I've set my eyes on? Quickly get out of my way. In an instant, the faces of Qing Lian and the other Zhongli clan members sank, and they sneered. Shut up. Who does your Xishar clan think you are? Are you qualified to fight with our Zhongli clan? Sha Luchan, I advise you to stay out of this. Sha Luchan was thoroughly enraged, and his eyes revealed a fierce glint. Are you talking to me? The three parties confronted each other, scolding and threatening each other. None of them was willing to submit to the other, which left the nearby cultivators dumbfounded. This was too domineering. The fierce characters of Cyan Phoenix Clan, Sea Shark Clan, and Zhongli Clan all wanted to be the first to kill Demon God Lin, which led to a dispute. It went without saying that they saw Demon God Lin as prey and did not allow anyone else to touch him. It was very overbearing. Even the expressions of the onlooking geniuses became very subtle. They never expected such a thing to happen. Look, this is a street rat that everyone wants to beat up. On the 9th floor of the Pavilion of Spring and Autumn, the descendants of the pure land of longevity were gloating. Bai Lingshi ignored them. At this moment, she frowned slightly, sensing that Lin's situation was not good. Being regarded as prey by three parties, he should be very angry, right? What worried Bai Lingshi the most was that there were many peerless figures in the Pavilion of Spring and Autumn. She did not know who would intervene in this matter and see Lin as a target to be suppressed. The tallest tree in the forest will be destroyed by the wind. Lin Sun came from the mortal world, so he has no one to rely on. For many peerless figures, he is undoubtedly the best target to suppress. There is no need to fear any consequences or trouble. Bai Lingshi instantly guessed the reason. She was even sure that if Lin Sun was also a disciple of some orthodoxy, these guys would not dare to provoke him so unscrupulously. In the final analysis, it was because Lin Sun had risen too fast. Although he was strong, he did not have a powerful background to deter others. It's too difficult to rise alone in the ancient desolation where there are many orthodoxies and tens of thousands of races. Bai Lingshi sighed in her heart. At this moment, she actually felt an indescribable pity. How on earth did Lin Sun get through all these years alone? How much effort did he put in behind scenes? How many blows and enemies like this had he encountered? No one knew. The atmosphere in the field was tense and murderous. Qing Lian, Sha Luchan, Zhongli Kuei, and others confronted each other without concealing their power. Their tit-for-tat made all the practitioners present tremble. Many people looked at Lin Sun with pity in their eyes. Demon God Lin was really unlucky this time to be regarded as prey. It was sad and lamentable. It's over. Demon God Lin's situation is not optimistic. Two fists can't defeat four hands. Moreover, it's not only Sha Luchan and Qing Lian who are fighting. Zhongli Wuji may appear at any time. Bai Fenglu was anxious. He did not want to see Lin Sun being suppressed before the Dao Discussion Lantern Festival. I'll go help him. Yu Jiaming took a deep breath and gritted his teeth. A group of peerless talents were targeting Lin Sun and arguing like they were fighting for prey. This was too much. Don't make trouble. Bai Fenglu hurriedly stopped him. It was no different from courting death at this time. Noisy. Shut up, all of you. In this chaotic and tense situation, Lin Sun finally couldn't stand it anymore. As he spoke, Lin Sun's figure flashed. He stepped on the void and suddenly came under the sky. His black eyes were like cold lightning, overlooking the whole field. Isn't it easy to die? Come at me together, he said coldly, and his voice spread like thunder. In an instant, the entire area fell silent. Not a single sound could be heard. Many strong practitioners of ancient orthodoxies, masters of many tribes and aristocratic families, as well as talent from all over the world, all looked at Lin Sun in the sky. The young man was dressed in a moon-white robe. His black hair fluttered in the wind, and his cold eyes flashed like lightning. Accompanied by a shout, there was a kind of disdainful and matchless demeanor, like a demon god in the ancient legends, overlooking the world. Chapter 863. Lin Sun stood in the air and looked down at the crowd. He wanted Qing Lian, and the others to die together. This scene was too shocking. Ridiculous. You must be tired of living. Sha Luchan was completely furious. He had planned to attack, but who would have thought that he would be disturbed by the Zhongli clan and Qing Lianer? He was already furious. Seeing that Lin Sun, whom he regarded as prey, dared to provoke him at such a time, he could no longer hold back. Die! He no longer cared about anything and attacked. His imposing body emitted a brilliant blood-red light as he shot into the sky and punched. Boom! The void exploded and the blood-red light shot into the sky. This punch was unparalleled. Many practitioners retreated, not daring to stand in the vicinity. Once a peerless figure like Sha Luchan got angry, the consequences would be unimaginable. Lin Sun stepped into the void and punched out to meet the attack head-on. Suddenly, the two collided like a volcanic eruption. Brilliant divine light swept across the void. The crowd was shocked. In such a confrontation, Sha Luchan did not gain the upper hand. He was only on par with Demon God Lin. Not bad. If I kill you, the world won't think I'm bullying the weak. Sha Yochan's expression was cold. Golden light shone from his body, and his blood chi roared. He had an invincible spirit. Cut the crap. After I kill you today, I can taste whether the meat of a sea shark is more delicious than that of a black tengu. Lin Sun said casually. Boom. Sha Luchan rushed up and punched out, shaking Zhou Su. Terrifying blood energy spread out like a clap of thunder. His divine might was terrifying. In an instant, the two were fighting fiercely. Their speed was so fast that it was too much for the eyes to follow. The light in the void roared and blood chi rose. It was as if two gods were fighting, attracting the attention of the audience. Sha Luchan was very powerful, far more powerful than some of the talents Lin Sun had seen before. In merely a short moment, they'd already exchanged a few tens of blows. The might of their fists rumbled beneath the sky, and it was like a surging, tempestuous wave that erupted with dazzling, divine radiance. Boom! The void seemed to have exploded, and a terrifying phenomenon appeared. The power of the Sand Flow Zen fist could definitely split mountains and seas. It could be said to be peerless. But in comparison, Lin Sun seemed to be even stronger. He didn't dodge at all, and he used the 9 strikes of shaking heaven to meet force with force. Heavens! Mo God Lin is no different from the rumors. He is already able to face a peerless person like Sha Luchan. All the shoujo were shocked. Even the heavens' favorites were stunned. Their hearts couldn't stay calm. Could the rumors be true? Was this youth from the barren lower realm really that powerful? Boom! In the sky, Lin Sun was calm and powerful. He stepped on the void and rushed forward with a spirit that could swallow the world. He'd already completely fused the heaven-shaking 9 strikes Tao, and every single move he made was so powerful that it seemed as if it could shake the sky, and it was peerlessly terrifying. Sha Luchan was indeed powerful. The innate divine strength of the Seashar clan allowed him to be at the top of his level. He could easily cross realms and fight a half-step king. However, with a bang, Lin Sun's fist force roared and spread blazing light. When it came to him, with the terrifying power of Tao, Sha Yochan's arm was numb. This shocked him. This guy's strength was extremely powerful and terrifying. Although Sha Luchan was domineering and arrogant, he didn't despise or underestimate Lin Sun. He had seen the fight between Lin Sun and the mysterious masked girl with his own eyes. He knew that even if the rumors about this person were exaggerated, he still had extremely powerful strength. This was also the reason why he wanted to suppress Lin Sun. Only by stepping on such a powerful opponent could he boost his prestige. If the opponent was too weak, he would only be laughed at by the world for daring to bully the weak. But now that he was really fighting Lin Sun, he was still a little surprised. Interesting. Sha Liuchan's eyes were full of fierce light, and his momentum rose a lot. He was determined to kill Lin Sun. However, the current Lin Sun was more than twice as powerful as he was when he fought with the mysterious masked girl. He had set foot on the road to the peak of reincarnation developing realm, and his martial cultivation had integrated with Tao, which made his combat effectiveness change dramatically. The best proof was that he easily suppressed Lin Taijin of the Green Mountains Fox clan a few days ago. Under such circumstances, how could he be afraid of Sha Liuchan? In other words, in the reincarnation developing realm, Lin Sun was no longer afraid of any opponent. Suddenly, a clear rebuke sounded in the field. How can I allow others to beat me to the prey I've set my eyes on? Along with the voice, the void suddenly trembled. Like a thunderclap, a beautiful figure rushed out and attacked Lin Sun fiercely with monstrous killing intent. Boom! The sky trembled, and the nearby void exploded. This blow was extremely terrible, like a divine rainbow falling from the sky. Lin Sun snorted coldly. With obscure Tao sounds coming from his mouth, he performed the Paleo roar. The golden sound wave spread and dissolved the blow into pieces. Hiss! All the heroes in the field gasped. They saw Qing Lian, or had appeared in the void. She was outstanding, dressed in cyan clothes. Her skin was white, and her beautiful face was cold and arrogant. Her strong intervention immediately disrupted the rhythm of the duel between Lin Sun and Sha Liuchan, and also caused an uproar. Was a peerless melee going to be staged? Oh no! Bai Lingshir's heart skipped a beat, and a solemn look appeared in her clear eyes. Both Sha Liuchan and Qing Lian wanted to kill Lin Sun as soon as possible. Under the threat of these two peerless talents, Lin Sun's situation was not optimistic. Damn it! How could this be? Bai Fenglu and Yu Jiaming's faces also changed. However, to everyone's surprise, Lin Sun was not afraid at all. Instead, he sneered, "Bitch of Cyan Phoenix clan, you came just in time. Come at me together, so I don't have to kill you one by one." As he spoke, he took a step forward. With a roar, his momentum became stronger and stronger. A snow-white ice dragon rose into the sky and rushed towards Qing Lian. He performed the 9 strikes for shaking heaven and rushed towards Sha Liuchan again. Lin Sun was going to fight against two peerless talents at the same time. Seeing this scene, the whole audience was in an uproar. They widened their eyes and felt that their blood was burning. Lin Sun's momentum made them exclaim in satisfaction. As for some of the elites, they frowned. Just to deal with a single fiend god Lin, they had to send out 2 peerless figures. Even if they won, it wouldn't be glorious. Qing Lian, do you want to fight against me on purpose? Sha Liuchan roared angrily. He didn't want to join hands with others to deal with Lin Sun. He couldn't afford to lose face. At the same time, he hated the fact that Lin Sun wanted to fight against the two of them at this moment, which was undoubtedly a contempt for him. Boom! As Sha Liuchan spoke, a blood-red light burst out from his body. He used a secret method that was extremely terrifying. After resolving Lin Sun's attack, he directly rushed towards Qing Lian. "Get out of my way!" His roar was like thunder, and his fists pierced through the air. It seemed that he was going to suppress all directions with an invincible spirit. "Sha Liuchan, do you really think I'm afraid of you? Let me tell you, I'm going to kill Lin Sun. Whoever dares to stop me is my enemy." Qing Lian, clear eyes were cold, and her whole body was full of fierce spirit. She waved her slender and white hand, and a sharp divine light appeared, entwined with the power of Tao. She fought against Sha Liuchan. Boom! For a moment, the battle in the void seemed to be chaotic. Lin Sun wanted to fight against the two of them alone, but neither Qing Lian nor Sha Liuchan agreed. Both of them tried to kill Lin Sun alone, and their attitude couldn't be changed. In the void, Lin Sun fought fiercely. Sometimes he fought against Sha Luchan, and sometimes he fought against Qing Lian. He was not afraid of anything at all. The same was true for Qing Lian, and Sha Luchan. When they wanted to deal with Lin Sun, they were always disturbed by Lin Sun and had to fight back. The three of them fought against each other, and it was actually a rarely seen, chaotic battle. All the heroes in the field were dumbfounded. They never thought that a peerless battle would turn out like this. However, such a battle was refreshing and could be said to be incomparably rare. In the past years, such a strange battle had rarely happened. As for the geniuses, they were startled and surprised. However, they soon focused their attention on the battle. Whether it was Devil God Lin, Sha Luchan, or Qing Lian, the current situation had vaguely formed a situation where they were restraining each other and fighting each other. Comparatively speaking, it could be said to be fair. If one really wanted to haggle, Fiend Celestial Lin was undoubtedly the one who suffered the most. This was because the other two were bent on killing him. The blow he suffered was undoubtedly the most terrifying. On the contrary, although Qing Lian, and Sha Luchan restrained each other, and no one could tolerate the other killing Demon Lin first, the conflict between them was not a real life-and-death battle. This meant that even if they fought against each other, they couldn't be ruthless. No matter what, Lin Sun is at a disadvantage. Those two guys had gone too far. Bai Lingshi frowned. She was angry for Lin Sun. Many practitioners realized this and saw the unfairness of Lin Sun's situation, but they didn't dare to say anything except sighing in their hearts. Whether it was the Cyan Phoenix clan or the Sea Shark clan, they couldn't afford to offend them. Even if they felt sorry for Lin Sun, they could only sympathize with him in their hearts. Boom! In the sky, Lin Sun and the two peerless figures fought in a melee. It was an unprecedented battle. What shocked everyone was that even so, Demon Lin didn't show the slightest sign of defeat. He wasn't even suppressed, which made him look extremely strong and terrifying. Qing Lian's face became colder, and her clear eyes were full of killing intent. Sha Youchan's face was livid with anger. Both of them realized that if they continued fighting like this, people would only say that they were bullying Lin Sun. Even if they won in the end, it would be an unfair victory. This was not the result they wanted, but soon their faces changed slightly, and they didn't dare to think anymore. Because at this moment, Lin Sun's combat strength had suddenly soared, and the power he exerted became more and more powerful, which made both of them feel a kind of pressure. How is this possible? Both of them were shocked. Chapter 864. How is this possible? Both Sha Luchan and Qing Lian were shocked. Previously, they tried to be the first to kill Demon Lin. They both used their killing moves and showed their true abilities. They subconsciously thought that if it weren't for the fact that they were restraining each other, Demon Lin would have been killed by now. But who would have thought that the opposite was true? Even though Demon Lin faced their fierce attacks, he was not suppressed. Instead, he became stronger and stronger. At this moment, they even felt a kind of pressure. How could they not be shocked? Kill! Sha Luchan roared. Like a barbarian god, he was strong and powerful. His body seemed to be cast from blood jade, shining brilliantly and translucently. He was the holy son of the Sea Shark clan, the son of an ancient fierce beast. He possessed peerless power. Now that he attacked in anger, his power became different. Humph! At the same time, Qing Lian was also irritated. Her slender figure was steaming with cyan light, and her cold and beautiful face was full of fierceness. Clang! She took out a cyan machete that looked like a wing. The runes on the machete were flowing, blooming with peerless sharpness. There was no doubt that this was an extremely powerful secret treasure. However, Lin Sun had already roughly figured out the abilities of these two people. He had no more scruples. He rushed into the field, his elegant figure bathed in waterfall-like divine brilliance. His cold eyes opened and closed, bursting with lightning. He was like a great demon with terrifying power. Boom! The battle in the void became more and more intense. There, rays of light rushed up, blood chi surged, and the wind was fierce. If it happened in the city, it would probably cause an unpredictable disaster. Dong. After a round of fighting, Lin Sun directly broke Sha Liuchan's defense with his fist. Then, he collided with Sha Liuchan. The dazzling fist wind cracked Sha Liuchan's hand, and blood burst out. At this time, Lin Sun was incomparably domineering. His combat power was boiling, and he seemed to have the momentum to sweep across the world. Bang! His fist energy was so terrifying that the void was shrouded in dazzling light. The whole sky seemed to be shaking and rumbling along with the fist energy. In an instant, Sha Liuchan staggered back. His blood and qi were surging, and his face suddenly became extremely shocked and angry. Impossible, he roared. He had carefully read all kinds of information about Lin Sun in front of the message tree, and he believed that he could suppress Lin Sun if he took action himself. However, Sha Liuchan never thought that what he knew about Lin Sun was just a while ago. Today, Lin Sun had already gone through the 3 disasters and completely transformed into a new realm, far better than before. The crowd was overwhelmed with shock. They cried out involuntarily in disbelief. How could they have imagined that fiend god Lin, who was already at a disadvantage and repeatedly suppressed by the 2 peerless figures, would launch a counterattack at such a moment? The elites were shocked as their expressions changed slightly. Even if they were unwilling, they had to admit that they had underestimated Fiend Celestial Lin. This caused them to feel very uncomfortable in their hearts. Rumble. The world shook. As soon as Sha Liuchan was pushed back, Lin Sun's figure flashed up. He stretched out his hand and ran the secret of Bashia prohibition to stop Qing Lian'er's attack for a moment. Taking advantage of this moment, Lin Sun rushed forward and punched out fiercely with the profound meaning of 9 strikes of shaking heaven. Boom! This punch tore the void apart like a piece of cloth. It was unparalleled and overbearing to the extreme, and it directly blasted on the Siam machete. Qing Lian'er trembled as if she was struck by lightning. Her chest felt stuffy, and she almost coughed up blood. She had to retreat, and her Siam machete almost flew out of her hand. Rumble, the void where she was originally fighting, was blasted apart, turning into a terrifying turbulence that spread out. This made Qing Lian'er's heart palpitate, and she frowned. How could he be so strong? However, despite suffering a small loss, both Sha Liuchan and Qing Lian'er were worthy of being peerless figures of the younger generation, and they were not injured. However, their expressions were solemn as they realized that the Fiend Celestial Lin in front of them should have a terrifying foundation that could crush others in the same realm as them. This was a formidable opponent. The battle continued. The 3 were tangled together, and under the blue sky, the chaotic clouds collapsed, and the void was in chaos. The practitioners in the field had long been stunned, and their hearts were drowned in endless shock. As expected of the Fiend Celestial Lin, he didn't gain a reputation by deceiving the world, and he didn't live up to his reputation. He was clearly even more ferocious and arrogant than the rumors said. He was still able to fight until now under the attacks of 2 peerless figures, and he'd even forced his opponent back. How many people in the younger generation could possess such peerless divine might? He deserves his reputation. A senior expert sighed with emotion. His words proved how laughable the criticism of Fiend Celestial Lin was. This kid's combat strength is shocking indeed, and there's rarely anyone in the same generation that can rival him. Some peerless figures in the field have been constantly watching. At this moment, they finally dared to conclude that Lin's strength was already a peerless figure in the younger generation. No matter the outcome of this battle, we'll have another formidable opponent in the Tao Discussion Lantern meeting. The eyes of Mu Jianting, an elite disciple of the younger generation of the Void Jade Temple, shot out divine radiance, and it was like a clanging of swords and sabers colliding. It's surprising indeed. I heard this kid is a cultivator from the lower dimensions, but the resources and strength he possesses can be said to be shocking. If we encounter him in the Tao Discussion Lantern meeting, then we should treat him as a great enemy. Li Qinghuan, an extraordinary figure of the younger generation of the Vasti Taoist sect, spoke in a light voice. His voice carried a trace of seriousness and solemnity. Only such an opponent is worth looking forward to. If he's too weak, then wouldn't it be too boring? The Thunder Clan's junior marquis. Lei Qianjun spoke with a droning, sonorous, and forceful voice that carried an explosive and oppressive, imposing aura. Besides them, there were many other peerless figures in the field, and their attitudes towards Lin Sun had silently changed along with the unfolding of this battle. On the other hand, the expressions of those geniuses that ridiculed and looked down upon Lin Sun earlier were slightly gloomy at this moment, and they were surprised and bewildered in their hearts. Originally, they'd subconsciously thought that Lin Sun was from the lower dimensions and possessed an extremely poor identity, and the rumors about him were all false. They'd taken him to be a figure that didn't live up to his reputation, and they'd been extremely disdainful and looked down upon him. But now, the world-shaking, chaotic battle unfolding before their eyes undoubtedly proved that they were all wrong, ridiculously wrong. This fact was like an invisible slap on their faces. The burning pain made them feel very uncomfortable, and it was very difficult for them to accept. This. In the pavilion of spring and autumn, Yin Xia, who was dressed in a fiery crane cloak, widened her eyes in disbelief. The other descendants of the pure land of longevity were the same. Their expressions were uncertain, and their minds were in a daze. Just a moment ago, they were still ridiculing Lin Sun, thinking that he was about to suffer a calamity and be detested by everyone. But in the blink of an eye, everything had changed. The demon god Lin that they despised had actually fought with two peerless figures under the green underworld pavilion, displaying a tyrannical combat strength that far surpassed his peers in the world. This was too unbelievable. They asked themselves honestly, and even if they were in his shoes, they wouldn't be able to display such divine might in such a chaotic battle like demon god Lin. How could this be? Could it be that they'd really misjudged him? At this moment, Bai Lingshi, who was standing in front of the window in a snow-white robe, didn't even turn her head. She gently spat out 4 words from her lips. Don't make a fuss about nothing. Instantly, the figures of Yin Xia and the others stiffened, and they revealed embarrassed expressions. From the first time they met Lin Sun, Bai Lingshi had told them not to make a fuss about nothing after witnessing Lin's means. However, they didn't take it seriously at all. They thought it was ridiculous. They were all descendants of the pure land of longevity. How could they be so agitated? But now, they found that they had become ridiculous people instead. This made them feel a little embarrassed, as if they had eaten a fly. But they couldn't refute it, and their expressions became very interesting for a while. However, Bai Lingshi didn't bother to continue to attack them. At this moment, the battle in the sky was getting more and more intense, attracting all her attention. Boom! Sha Luchan was about to go crazy. He felt a little embarrassed after fighting for a long time. His figure swept across like a thunderbolt, becoming more and more powerful, as if he was pushing the sun and the moon with terrible ferocity. Lin Sun's figure flashed and avoided it. He raised his hand and performed the secret method of Swanee Seal, colliding with Qing Lianer, who came from one side. Boom! The void shook and the divine light was absorbed by the rock. Sha Luchan became even angrier. His eyes were ice cold. On his sparkling and resplendent body, resplendent symbols appeared one after another. These were the true innate bone marks. They contained the supreme, profound mysteries of the archaic vicious beast sea shark bloodline. Once they were used, 10,000 streaks of bloody light shot out. Vaguely, there was a thunderous sound, which shook the surroundings and spread to the 9 heavens. In a trance behind Sha Luchan, there seemed to be a bloody shark of tens of thousands of meters, which covered the sky and the sun. The terrible breath filled the universe as if to swallow the world. Everyone's expression changed. Even the heavens' favorites' pupils constricted. They realized that Sha Luchan had unleashed a terrifying technique in his rage. Lin Sun didn't dare to neglect. He ran all the Upanishads of 9 strikes of shaking heaven to the extreme and punched out. Boom! The peerlessly dazzling and resplendent punch seemed to have pierced through time and space, and it carried an all-conquering and peerlessly ferocious killing force. At that moment, in the boundless fist, there appeared the cycle of the sun and the moon, landslides and tsunamis, and all kinds of terrible phenomena. Qing Lianer, who was attacking Sha Luchan, suddenly changed her face. She suddenly withdrew and retreated to the distance. She realized the horror and danger. At the same time, Lin Sun and Sha Yochan's peerless strike collided. Suddenly, an earth-shattering explosion sounded, as if thousands of mountains collapsed in an instant. The terrible divine light spread in all directions, crushing and shattering the void. On the ground, some buildings were affected and disappeared with a loud bang. Some practitioners didn't have time to dodge and were sent flying by the terrible aftermath. At that moment, the city within a radius of 100 miles shook violently. Sand and stones flew everywhere. It was chaotic, and exclamations and screams rang out. Only the pavilion of spring and autumn was safe and sound. This pavilion was a famous historical site, which had left traces of ancient sages, so it was not affected. However, at this moment, no one paid attention to this. All eyes were fixed on the void with a touch of disbelief and horror. There, Sha Luchan staggered back more than 30 meters. His face turned red, and finally, he couldn't help coughing out a mouthful of red blood. Chapter 865. There was a dead silence. Sha Luchan was furious and used a peerless secret method. The sound of Tao roared in the shadow of an ancient blood-red sea shark appeared, almost engulfing the world. Even Qing Lian had no choice but to avoid the sharp edge at this time. However, in such a head-on clash, the one who was defeated was not Fiend Celestial Lin, but Sha Luchan. This left everyone incredulous. It was really incredible. Sha Yochan's combat strength had long been acknowledged by the younger generation of the West Home world, and he was hailed as a peerless elite. Now that he had used a peerless divine power, he was still defeated by Demon God Lin in a head-on clash. Didn't this mean that Demon God Lin's true strength was even greater than Sha Yochan's? Many of the Heaven's favorites were secretly shocked by this. For example, the girl in purple dress from Mi Luo Palace, who had been indifferent and aloof, couldn't calm down at this moment. A ripple flashed across her beautiful face, and the descendants of the pure land of longevity were all stunned. They even felt that at this moment, Lin Sun had a style that didn't belong to Yu Linkong. How is this possible? They couldn't believe it. Not only them, but Bai Lingshi also seemed to be quiet, but at this moment her white hands also trembled. She was not as calm as she looked on the surface. You actually injured me? In the void, Sha Yochan's face was livid and his pupils were dilated. It seemed that he couldn't accept all this, and his voice was filled with anger and surprise. It's easy to kill you. Why make such a fuss? Lin Sun smiled. His black hair was flying, and his whole body was bathed in the bright light. The power of Tao circulated, making him look like a sun, shining alone in the universe. He didn't stop. As he spoke, he rushed forward and continued to kill. I don't believe you are really so strong. Unexpectedly, Qing Lianer, who had just avoided Lin Sun's sharp attack, took the lead to launch an attack. She controlled the bright and sharp cyan machete and cut through the void. Swish! Thousands of saber lights appeared in the void, like thousands of comets falling down, dazzling and dazzling. The saber chi was terrible, tearing the universe apart and dense like a rainstorm. Many practitioners in the field felt a stinging pain in their eyes, and they couldn't open their eyes. The saber lights were too bright and dense. Blue Moon, chaotic demon kill. Sha Yochan's pupils constricted. Originally, he had wanted to attack, but now he chose to watch from the sidelines. That was because he recognized that what Qing Lian was using was one of the Cyan Phoenix clan's secret techniques. Once it was used, the blade would be like a green moon hanging in the sky, able to throw the world into chaos and kill gods and demons. Its power was extremely terrifying. Moreover, the saber in Qing Lian's hand was an ancient treasure called the Greeny Lightbreaker Saber. Its power was comparable to an imperial Dao armament. Under such circumstances, Sha Luchan also wanted to see whether Lin could block Qing Lianer's attack or not, because he still couldn't accept the scene of being defeated just now. It felt so unreal. Rumble. Saber chi filled the sky, and it was like a green crescent moon dancing wildly, throwing the universe into chaos. There was no doubt that Qing Lian was greatly shocked by the scene of Lin defeating Sha Luchan, so she used her killing move at this moment. Lin Sun was fearless. With a clang, he took out a bright halberd and chopped out like lightning. This was one of the treasures he had obtained from Cell after killing him. Dang! Dang! Clang! Sparks splashed in all directions, divine light burst out, and murderous chi filled the sky. In an instant, he and Qing Lian had fought hundreds of times. The dazzling saber light almost drowned Lin's Sun. At this moment, Qing Lian was really terrible. Her momentum was so fierce that it was frightening. Streaks of saber light, like the green crescent moon, swept out, tearing the void into pieces. Rumble. In the distance, some buildings were struck by the saber chi, and they were immediately chopped into two before collapsing and collapsing. Numerous enormous cracks and ravines were cut open on the ground, and they crisscrossed each other. Crack! In the blink of an eye, the halberd in Lin Sun's hand was cut off and exploded. Hiss! The sound of gasping was heard. Was Demon Lin going to suffer a disaster? Qing Lian, lips curved coldly, but before she could be happy, the curve of her lips froze. Because at the same time when the halberd exploded, a snow-white saber light suddenly burst out from between Lin Sun's eyebrows and appeared in the void. At that moment, it was like a stream of light from ancient times crossing the river of time with a kind of breathtaking magnificence which seemed too unreal. Puff! Qing Lian let out a scream as if she was extremely frightened, and her figure retreated rapidly in the void. The audience was stunned. They thought Demon Lin would be in danger, but who would have thought that at this moment, Qing Lian seemed to have encountered a great disaster. It was too fast. Everything happened in a flash, and many practitioners didn't have time to react. Only some peerless figures keenly noticed that the saber light that swept out from Lin Sun's body had severely injured Qing Lian, with just a flash. It was even to the extent that even they had merely caught a glimpse of this scene, and they hadn't truly seen through the terrifying profundities contained within this attack. Crash! In the sky, Qing Lian had retreated 1,000 feet away. A bloody wound stretched from her left shoulder all the way to the right side of her abdomen. Blood splattered everywhere. Just a bit more, and her abdomen would have been split open. My God! When they saw this scene clearly, all the practitioners present felt their scalps go numb, and they were so shocked that their bodies stiffened. Qing Lian almost suffered a disaster. It was as unreal as a dream. The other geniuses all had serious expressions on their faces, and their hearts were in turmoil. Even though they were unable to see through the true profundity of the attack just now, they all felt threatened. He actually still has a trump card. Only Sha Luchan, who was in the battlefield, acutely noticed the terror of the strike just now, and the breathtaking scene at that moment caused his heart to tremble, and he gasped without end. He realized that Lin Sun still had an extremely terrifying trump card hidden, and this was the power of the broken blade. After stepping into the reincarnation developing realm, Lin Sun had truly started to control the power of Dao insight, and he could finally display a part of the power of the broken blade. Even if it was merely a part, the heaven-defying might was still invincible, and it could easily kill a half-step King Rel practitioner. Qing Lian was only seriously injured and not killed on the spot, so she deserved the title of Peerless Genius. Bitch, you're still not going to die. While everyone was shocked, Lin Sun didn't stop at all, and he leaped forward with the intention of taking advantage of this opportunity to kill Qing Lian in one fell swoop. Although this woman was the current saintess of the Siam Phoenix clan, she was extremely vicious. Even though he had never met her, she had humiliated and provoked him to the extreme, and she wanted to step on him to advance. So Lin Sun would absolutely not show any mercy. He had had enough. Since he had already made a move, he would kill to the end. Only in this way could he make an example out of her, and shock those who despised and criticized him from the soul. Damn it! After suffering a heavy injury, Qing Lian still couldn't believe it, and she was extremely shocked and furious. She couldn't imagine that she would almost suffer a calamity, and this caused unprecedented shame and hatred to surge in her heart. When she saw Lin Sun rushing towards her, she almost went mad. Did he see her as prey and wanted to kill her? This was going too far. Since she started cultivating, she had never encountered such an embarrassing and dangerous situation. Lin Sun, your opponent is me. At this critical moment, Sha Luchan actually rushed out and stood in front of Lin Sun, and his blood-red fist rumbled, tearing the void and striking towards Lin Sun. Scram! Lin Sun was in a hurry to kill Qing Lian. At this critical moment, he exerted all the strength in his body to its peak and let out a bulow roar. Rumble. The golden sound wave was like a solid substance, shattering the void and spreading out, forcing Sha Luchan back. This bulow roar was indeed incomparably domineering, and it even targeted the soul. In the distance, Qing Lian had already suffered a heavy injury, and being caught off guard by the deafening roar, she felt a sharp pain in her soul and almost exploded. Ah! She let out a shrill scream, her hair disheveled, and her beautiful face looked especially hideous and twisted at this moment. She no longer had the proud and aloof saintess demeanor from before, and she simply looked like she had gone mad. Boom! At this moment, Lin Sun had already rushed over, and he was attacking with great force. All the cultivators present were shocked, their eyes widened, and their hearts were in their throats. Too strong, Demon God Lin's arrogant attitude that swept through the entire field had completely stunned them. Not good. The Heaven's Favorite's expressions changed, and they realized that Qing Lian was in a precarious situation, and she was about to meet a calamity. However, at this critical moment, a sudden change occurred. A figure as tall and straight as a spear suddenly appeared in the void, blocking in front of Qing Lian, and then he struck out with his palm. Bang! There was a terrifying collision, and divine light burst out, and it actually dissolved Lin Sun's powerful sure-kill strike. This made Lin Sun frown, and his expression turned cold. At this critical moment, Lin Sun was furious that his strike to kill Qing Lian was destroyed. He looked up and saw a black-robed man with an incomparably handsome face, long purple hair hanging down, and a pair of pupils that seemed to be cast out of gold appeared in his eyes, incomparably terrifying. Black robe, purple hair, and pupils that emitted golden runes. All these characteristics made this young man extremely unique and extraordinary. Zhongli Wuji. He's actually already here. Everyone was shocked, and they immediately recognized the black-robed, purple-haired young man's identity, making him the focus of everyone's attention. Previously, Qing Lian was seriously injured, and even Sha Luchan was forced to retreat. Just as Demon God Lin was about to start a massacre, Zhongli Wuji arrived. He came just in time, and as if he had calculated everything, he turned the tide, which was equivalent to saving Qing Lian's life. Such an appearance was undoubtedly very eye-catching, and it also made him extremely extraordinary. In an instant, his limelight overshadowed Sha Luchan and Qing Lian. It's better to come at the right time than to come early. As soon as Zhongli Wuji appears, it's obvious who's superior. Many practitioners sighed with emotion, but the Heaven's Favorites present had strange expressions, and they were secretly vigilant. How could they not see that Zhongli Wuji had obviously arrived long ago, and had been hiding in the dark, waiting for this moment to appear? Why'd he do this? It was too simple. On one hand, he could overshadow Sha Luchan and Qing Lian's limelight, so as to highlight his extraordinariness. On the other hand, he could conveniently save Qing Lian's life. This was a great favor, and even if Qing Lian was unwilling, she would have to repay this great favor sooner or later. Chapter 866. Welcome, young master. Young master is mighty. All the clansmen of the Zhongli clan spoke out. Their faces were filled with pride, and they seemed as if they felt honored as well. The experts of the Azure Phoenix clan and Sea Shark clan all had gloomy expressions. Zhongli Wuji was truly scheming, coming out at this moment to act as the savior. How shrewd and scheming. Some peerless figures frowned. They did not expect Zhongli Wuji to be so adept at grasping the situation. This was undoubtedly terrifying. In the void, Zhongli Wuji's figure was tall and straight like a spear. His purple hair was thick, and golden runes appeared in his eyes as he blinked. He was extremely talented and extremely intimidating. Demon God Lin, it's just a spar, yet you want to kill someone. This is too much. His words were casual and calm, but they carried a reprimanding tone. His high and mighty attitude was like a senior reprimanding a junior. Many cultivators were speechless. Previously, Demon God Lin's divine might was disdainful as he swept through the battlefield, defeating Sha Luchan and Qing Lian, or one after another. Under such circumstances, Zhongli Wuji still dared to treat Demon God Lin like this. This was shocking. Sha Liuchan's expression was ugly, and he was filled with annoyance and anger. This time, not only did he fail to defeat Demon God Lin, he even allowed Zhongli Wuji to seize the opportunity to show off, acting as if he was going to stand up for him and Qing Lian. How could Sha Luchan not be angry? Qing Lian was the same, her expression livid. She had her own trump card. Even if Zhongli Wuji did not appear, she was confident that she could not be killed. But it was clearly too late to say all this. Whether she admitted it or not, she had to accept Zhongli Wuji's favor. This made her hate him so much that she almost crushed her teeth. Being defeated by Demon God Lin in front of everyone was already humiliating enough. Now that Zhongli Wuji had appeared, she was even more humiliated. How could she not feel aggrieved and resentful? At this moment, Zhongli Wuji was absolutely dazzling, attracting the gazes of all the cultivators present. But Lin Sun hated this person and said coldly, "So you're Zhongli Wuji. You really are a bastard who likes to show off." His words were very impolite. Zhongli Wuji's appearance had made him miss an excellent opportunity to kill Qing Lian. Likes to show off? Bastard? The crowd was restless, and all of them were stunned. Some of the cultivators were so impressed that they wanted to kowtow and worship him, as expected of Demon God Lin. Only he would dare to criticize Zhongli Wuji like that. On the other hand, the expressions of those geniuses became strange. To be honest, they agreed with Lin Sun's words, but they would not show it on the surface. Junior Sister Ling Si, this friend of yours is truly arrogant. Even I can't help but feel admiration for him. A successor of the blessed lands of longevity lamented. Although the others didn't speak, their expressions were a little complicated. They had witnessed the shocking melee just now, and also witnessed how Lin Sun defeated the peerless talents. The disdain and contempt in their hearts had long been swept away. Even if they were unwilling, they had to admit that Demon God Lin was truly powerful. Even in their holy land of longevity, there were only a handful of peerless figures like Demon God Lin. Bai Fenglu was very excited. He quickly used a message leaf to inscribe. The angle he chose was very tricky, and he specifically inscribed the part where Lin Sun reprimanded Zhongli Wuji. As for Zhongli Wuji's words, he deliberately blurred them out. Demon God Lin, oh, Demon God Lin, we, the Wind Whisper clan, should have maintained a neutral attitude, but I don't like these fellows, so I can only exaggerate your image. Even if you find out about it in the future, you'll definitely appreciate my kindness, Bai Fenglu muttered to himself. Brother Lin Sun is really a god. You jamming sighed with emotion after holding back for a long time. However, to everyone's surprise, Zhongli Wuji didn't get angry. Instead, he frowned and said calmly, Demon God Lin, do you only know how to talk? If so, I will look down on you. He was indeed very calm and maintained a kind of demeanor. So what if you look down on me? Lin Sun was so angry that he laughed. You are really shameless and hypocritical. A few days ago, who was the first to jump out and threaten to suppress me in front of the world? Now, you say that I only know how to talk. Do you have any shame? Without any concealment, Lin Sun's words were direct and impolite, which shocked all the practitioners present. They increasingly realized that demon god Lin's fierceness was even stronger than the rumors. Thinking back, from the moment demon god Lin appeared, he killed Sel, the top expert of Xishar clan, and then suppressed Tang Chuan, the top talent of the young generation of Weeping Sword sect. Even when Sha Luchan, Qing Lian and the Zhongli clansmen appeared and pointed their spears at him, he still wasn't intimidated. Instead, he leaped into the sky, intending to kill Sha Luchan and Qing Lian these two peerless figures, all by himself. Later, Sha Luchan was defeated, and Qing Lian was seriously injured and almost died. All these scenes happened in front of everyone, which invisibly reflected the strength and fierceness of demon god Lin. Looking at the whole world, there was probably no other person with such courage and ruthlessness. But to everyone's surprise, Zhongli Wuji was still unperturbed in the face of demon god Lin's reprimand. He just frowned and said, "Yes, I did say that not anyone in this world is worthy of the title demon god. If you don't accept it, I'll be the first to suppress you at the beginning of the Tao Discussion Lantern Festival and remove your title." His words were calm, but he had a strong foundation and absolute confidence. "Cut the crap. It's easy to die if you want to. I'll send you on your way now," Lin Sun said coldly, finding him more and more unpleasant. The crowd was in an uproar. Demon god Lin wanted to continue suppressing Zhongli Wuji? What did it mean to be unrivaled? That was it. If Feng Lin Han, the successor of Baji Saber Nunnery, was here, he would probably also sigh at his inferiority. However, when Sha Luchan and Qing Lian heard it, they felt inexplicably pleased. Previously, they had been defeated by Fiend God Lin and felt humiliated. They were furious and aggrieved, but now, Zhongli Wuji was in the limelight, acting like the savior of the world. This made them feel extremely repulsed and disgusted. Therefore, when they saw Lin Sun's ferocious provocation and reprimand Zhongli Wuji, they were naturally happy to see it happen. They even wished for demon god Lin to show his might and suppress Zhongli Wuji first. This was the mentality of, if I'm not having a good time, I won't let you have a good time. Now, aren't you embarrassed? Zhongli Wuji chuckled. Zhongli Wuji, am not one to be watched like a monkey show. A monkey show? Instantly, Sha Luchan and Qing Lian's expressions turned extremely ugly. How did their duel become a monkey show from Zhongli Wuji's mouth? Was he calling them monkeys who were trying to impress the crowd? The crowd was speechless as well. Zhongli Wuji might look calm and collected, but his words were so sharp that it caused others to feel fearful. A monkey show? You're right. I'll make a fool out of shameless and hypocritical monkey like you today. Lin Sun's figure charged forward. He was too lazy to talk nonsense. Boom! Dazzling divine brilliance flowed all over his body. Lin Sun exerted his full strength the moment he made a move. His fists were bright and blazing, whistling through the universe. Zhongli Wuji's pupil shrank. He originally thought that after such a fierce battle, demon god Lin must have consumed a lot of energy and would at least have some scruples when facing him. Unexpectedly, Lin Sun was still as strong as before and was about to start a battle. It seems that if I don't suppress you, trash from the mortal world, you don't know what respect is. Zhongli Wuji's eyes shot out golden runes that looked like they were cast from gold. His purple hair fluttered in the wind, and his power suddenly became extremely terrifying. In an instant, the wind and clouds surged in the sky, and the atmosphere was tense. A peerless duel was about to begin. The crowd was excited as they looked over. Is it worth it to fight to the death before the Tao Discussion Lantern Festival begins? Listen to this old one's advice. All of you stop. However, before the two of them could fight, a figure had appeared in the sky like a ghost and stood between them. It was an old woman with silver hair, hale and hearty spirits, and a dignified aura. Her aura was like a towering mountain that connected the heavens and the earth, and it gave others an unshakable feeling. Hiss! All the cultivators present gasped as they recognized the old woman. She was a top senior figure from Xianwen's sword house. No one had expected that this old woman with an extremely lofty status would interfere in this matter. At the same time, Lin Sun's pupils shrank, and it made him extremely unhappy. When he intended to kill Qing Lian, he was stopped by Zhongli Wuji. Now, another old monster stood out with the intention of stopping all this. How could Lin Sun be happy? At this moment, Lin Sun didn't care who it was. He wasn't afraid, even if it was the emperor himself. Boom! He executed the ice dragon steps, and a snow-white ice dragon soared into the sky. His figure flashed, and he was about to pass the old woman and continue to kill Zhongli Wuji. Zhongli Wuji's pupils constricted, and he was slightly infuriated. He was very surprised because he thought that Lin Sun would retreat in the face of difficulties once the old woman made an appearance. Never had he imagined that this fellow actually didn't back down at all. It wasn't just Zhongli Wuji, even the old woman was slightly surprised. This kid really deserves to be a fiend god. Isn't he a bit too ferocious? While she thought like this in her heart, the old woman stretched out her hand and slapped. Crimson divine radiance swept through the sky while the glow of the Tao rumbled, and it revealed a grand and profound scene as it obstructed Lin Sun. This casual strike carried a form of natural might that was accompanied by the grand Tao, and it instantly dealt with Lin Sun's attack. Stomp! 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 Lin Sun was blasted to the point of taking a few steps back in midair while his arm went numb, and he couldn't help but be shocked in his heart. This old woman had clearly not stepped foot into the King Realm, yet her strength was much stronger than some top half-step King Realm experts. But in merely an instant, Lin Sun was stunned. He'd clearly seen the old woman's appearance and instantly recognized her. Chapter 867. All the cultivators present here were shocked. Demon God Lin was too ferocious, and he even dared to attack fearlessly when Granny Golden Crane made an appearance. Granny Golden Crane was the old woman with snow-white hair. She was a top figure of the senior generation in the profound Inquiry Sword School, and she possessed a great reputation and was highly respected. In the westward region, even some great figures of the ancient orthodoxies had to be courteous to her. This was prestige. Zhongli Wuji's expression was solemn as he berated, "Lin Sun, how audacious of you! You actually offended a senior of the profound Inquiry Sword School for the sake of committing murder. You're simply disrespectful and arrogant to the extreme." His voice shook the 9 heavens and caused the surroundings to become restless. He was seizing this opportunity to sow discord between Demon God Lin and the profound Inquiry Sword School. Who the fuck do you think you are? Come out and fight me if you have the balls. Lin Sun was extremely blunt as he detested such hypocritical opponents. Zhongli Wuji was awe-inspiring, and his golden eyes flickered with lightning as he shouted, "Do you think I don't dare? Today, I'll enforce justice on behalf of the heavens and annihilate a disrespectful madman like you." "All right, don't do anything else." Granny Golden Crane waved her hand. "If you want to fight, then do it during the Tao lantern discussion. At that time, even an old fellow like me won't be able to stop you from fighting." As she spoke, she glanced at Lin Sun with a meaningful gaze. Lin Sun's heart shook. He knew that she was reminding him that even if he carried out a slaughter today, it would be impossible for him to kill his opponent. The reason was very simple. There were countless great figures paying attention to him in the shadows, so they naturally wouldn't allow him to carry out a slaughter. However, Zhongli Wuji grinned and said, "Senior, you're right. I've said that in the past as well. Unfortunately, some people can't keep their composure and are jumping up and down like clowns." "How laughable." Lin Sun said directly, "Remember what you said. I'll definitely kill you when the Tao lantern discussion begins." Zhongli Wuji laughed lightheartedly. "Then let's see if you have the ability." The curtains to this peerless chaotic battle were drawn. Lin Sun didn't enter the spring and autumn pavilion, and he left with Bai Feng Lu and Yu Jiaming. Killing intent accumulated in his heart, yet he didn't act impulsively because he wanted to seize the opportunity before the Tao Lantern Festival began to obtain a detailed understanding of the Tao Lantern Festival. Demon God Lin lives up to his reputation. Although the battle had come to an end, the practitioners in the field still could not calm down. Thinking of the scenes they had just seen, they felt Lin Sun's strength and ferocity more and more. A youth that came from the lower dimensions is able to possess such a peerless bearing now. Ask yourself honestly, who amongst the younger generation of the Western Ocean world is capable of accomplishing this? In the future, if anyone dares to say that Fiend God Lin doesn't live up to his reputation, that would be truly ignorant. Many shoujo were filled with admiration. Demon God Lin had come from the lower Jia alone with no one to rely on. His glorious battle achievements had all been achieved with his own fists. This seemed to be extremely difficult, and it wasn't something that the heirs of the other ancient sects could compare to. He defeated 2 peerless geniuses by himself, and even threatened to kill Zhongli Wuji during the Tao Discussion Lantern meeting. Can anyone in the entire West Hung world go against such combat strength and courage? What do you think Fiend God Lin's strength has reached? That's insane. All sorts of discussions rose and fell. Pavilion of Spring and Autumn. There was a total of 9 levels, and there was another world within them. Every level had its own scene, and the space within it was boundlessly vast. There were traces of ancient sages left behind here, and one was able to clearly sense a shapeless, solemn, and ancient aura within it. The Tao Discussion Lantern meeting was about to begin, and numerous geniuses from different areas of the Western Ocean world were gathered within the Spring and Autumn Pavilion. In the past, it was difficult to even meet a single genius. But now, the 9th level of the Spring and Autumn Pavilion was filled with extraordinary figures of the younger generation that were renowned throughout the world, and it could be said to be a gathering of geniuses. However, there was a difference between geniuses as well. Just like the current Spring and Autumn Pavilion, the geniuses that resided on the 1st level were far from being able to compare with the peerless geniuses that resided on the 9th level. This was the gap between them. To give a simple example, Yu Jiaming was an extremely dazzling figure in the Fire Soul Prefecture. But after he arrived at the Spring and Autumn Pavilion, he could only reside in the hall on the 1st level. Even a retainer like Cell dared to kick him out of the Pine Mist Pavilion, and this was the gap between him and a peerless genius. It wasn't just related to one's strength, it was also related to one's status and identity. Take Bai Lingshi's group, for example. Although they weren't peerless geniuses, they were from the southern profound world's pure land of longevity. Just this identity alone was something that other geniuses couldn't reach, so they naturally had the qualifications to sit high above the 9th level of the Spring and Autumn Pavilion. But no matter what, being able to enter the Spring and Autumn Pavilion was already a form of acknowledgement, and it wasn't something that most cultivators in the world could compare to. This demon god Lin is simply too ferocious. He's even more formidable than the rumors say. I really can't believe that he actually came from the lower worlds. Alas, another peerless genius has appeared. Even if there are many unparalleled, fortuitous encounters in this Tao Discussion Lantern meeting, I'm afraid only a pitifully few of them will be able to be obtained by us. Today, I've finally witnessed a battle between peerless geniuses. They're indeed more monstrous than the previous, and it's simply despairing. At this moment, the Spring and Autumn Pavilion was filled with endless discussions. No matter which level the geniuses sat on, they were all discussing the shocking, chaotic battle that had just occurred. The Tao Discussion Lantern meeting would begin in a few days, and the domineering appearance of Demon God Lin at such a time caused many geniuses to feel pressured. So what if he's strong? He's offended peerless figures like Sha Luchan, Qing Lian and Zhongli Wuji, so he'll definitely suffer an unprecedented blow when the Tao Discussion Lantern meeting begins. Perhaps he might even suffer calamity because of this. There were many geniuses who were extremely disgruntled in their hearts. They'd always taken Lin Sun to be someone who didn't deserve his reputation and was someone who deceived the world. Now, the more dazzling Lin Sun's display was, the more aggrieved they felt in their hearts. Exactly. This demon god, Lin, only came from the lower worlds. No matter how formidable his strength is, he's only an independent cultivator. But it just so happens that he's arrogant and daring to the extreme. He's probably been taken to be a thorn in everyone's side since a long time ago after he caused such a storm. As they were conversing, someone suddenly laughed and said, "All of you vulgar beings are sarcastic, and your words are sour. All you can do is grumble here. If all of you were to really face that demon god Lin, then you'd probably be terrified right away." "Who is it?" Instantly, the faces of many geniuses sank, and their gazes shot towards the source of the voice in unison. It was a young monk dressed in a white monk's robe. He had a thin figure, and he was elegant and otherworldly. He sat there casually and was brewing tea with a purple clay teapot. His brows were clear, and his forehead was smooth and clean. His eyes were clear like stars and surged with wisdom. Just a glance at him made one feel like he was pure and untainted. All the geniuses narrowed their eyes as they sensed that the young monk was extraordinary. But everyone present was a genius after all. Someone immediately sneered. "May I know which temple or ancient temple this friend is from? Why are you speaking so arrogantly? You don't have the bearing of a monk at all." The young monk smiled and casually picked up a cup of tea. As he sipped, he said casually, "A monk doesn't lie. I'll say whatever I want to say. If all of you are disgruntled, feel free to seek out that demon god Lin and give it a try. If he doesn't cower, then consider it my loss." Everyone's expressions were very gloomy. This monk seemed calm, but his words were extremely sharp. As the saying goes, don't hit people in the face and don't expose people's shortcomings. But it was obvious that this monk was very good at exposing people's scars. Everyone present was very repulsed and disgusted by him. However, before they could speak, the young monk stood up. His robe was clean and elegant, like a snow lotus, untainted by a speck of dust. What is a heavenly talent? The leader of the stars. It's a pity that only a small group of people here are worthy of such a title. He sighed softly as if he was a little dispirited. Then he walked out of the pavilion of spring and autumn. Everyone's expressions became even more gloomy. This was equivalent to directly saying that they were not qualified to be called heavenly talents. "You all seem to be disgruntled. Fine, I'll say it this time. 1 year from now, when the Heavenly Talents Golden List reappears in the ancient Desolation Realm, only the true heavenly talents from the 4 great worlds will be on it. And I'm afraid that most of you here are not qualified to be on the Heavenly Talents Golden List." His voice was as calm as water, ethereal and calm. When his voice faded away, the young monk's figure had already disappeared from the pavilion of spring and autumn. All the heavenly talents present were shocked, and their expressions changed slightly. Heavenly Talents Golden List? It was the first time they had heard of it. On the 9th floor of the pavilion of spring and autumn, a group of peerless heavenly talents sat cross-legged. There was Li Qinghuan, the successor of the Tsangmei Taoism sect, Mu Jianting, the successor of the Jade Void Temple, the successor of the Miluo Palace. There was also a group of successors from the Pure Land of Longevity in the Southern Xian world, as well as some other peerless heavenly talents. There were more than 30 of them. Strictly speaking, the peerless heavenly talents sitting on the 9th floor of the pavilion of spring and autumn represented the strongest of the younger generation in the Western Hung world. They had been discussing the details of the battle just now. They all had their own opinions about Lin's son, but there was no dispute. The atmosphere was very peaceful. However, when the young monk appeared and said those words, it attracted everyone's attention. For a moment, they were all silent. "Everyone, have you heard of the Heavenly Talents Golden List?" Someone broke the silence. Everyone shook their heads. It was also the first time they had heard of it. Even by Ling Shi and the other successors from the Pure Land of Longevity in the Southern Xian world were confused. It was also the first time they had heard of it. "Then, have you figured out who that friend from the Buddhist sect is?" The man continued to ask. For a time, everyone went silent once more. There were very few powers that belonged to the Buddhist sect in the West Hung region, and they'd never heard of such a maverick young Buddhist cultivator appearing in the younger generation. If I'm not mistaken, he is the successor of the great Zen temple in the Sacred Hermitage. Chapter 868. His voice was chilly like the gurgling of spring water, and it drifted out and caused one's mind to calm down. A young girl with a graceful figure and a temperament as cold as ice had appeared at the entrance to the 9th floor of the pavilion of spring and autumn. She wore a plain dress, and a wooden hairpin was inserted into her black hair, revealing a fair and beautiful face. She looked to be only around the age of 17 or 18, and she was innately beautiful. Her ink-black brows were perfectly straight, while her clear eyes were crystalline and translucent like gems, and she naturally carried a strand of a beautiful aura. At once, everyone stood up to greet him. Ji Xingyao. She was the current saintess of the number 1 sect in the West Ocean world, the Profound Inquisition Sword School. Moreover, she was reputed to be the leading figure of the younger generation, and she possessed a dazzling title that was sufficient to cause the world to exclaim with admiration. In the eyes of ordinary cultivators, Ji Xingyao was no different from the legendary fairy. Her status was transcendent. However, the reason why all the peerless figures here stood up to welcome him was not because of fear or reverence, but out of courtesy and respect. But without a doubt, this was a form of acknowledgement of Ji Xingyao's identity. Don't stand on ceremony, everyone. Ji Xingyao walked in. She was like a swaying green lotus. Her legs were long and slender, and her waist was slender. Even the plain dress she wore could not hide the perfect curves of her body. She did indeed possess an otherworldly beauty that was capable of stunning the world. Her bearing was chilly like snow, her skin glistening and translucent like jade, and she was like a celestial maiden that had descended from the heavens, causing others to be unable to help but feel ashamed of their inferiority and not dare have the slightest disrespect towards her. Even if it was some peerless figures present here, they couldn't help but praise in their hearts. Ji Xingyao really deserves to be a disciple of the Profound Sikh Sword School. Her bearing is peerless. It was even to the extent that many people had almost overlooked the fact that an old woman with snow-white hair was following behind Ji Xingyao. No wonder senior brother Yu Lingkong acted so solemnly and didn't hesitate to traverse an entire world and travel a great distance just to pay a visit to this disciple of the Profound Inquiry Sword School that he's never met. Miss Ji's appearance can absolutely be said to be beautiful like a celestial maiden. A successor of the pure land of longevity sighed with emotion. The others also deeply agreed. However, even though his voice was soft, it was still heard by Ji Xingyao. Especially when she heard the 3 words, Yu Lingkong, she frowned unnoticeably. Everyone, are you all curious why the successor of the great Zen temple of the Saint Hermit Land would suddenly appear here? Ji Xingyao sat there casually, appearing cold and unique. Her voice was clear and melodious, but it immediately attracted everyone's attention. This caused their hearts to tremble, and they sobered up completely. The Saint Hermit Land. This was an honorific that referred to those mysterious places that transcended the world and were unknown to the secular world. In the 4 realms of the ancient Desolation Realm, there were only 4 or 5 known sacred retreats. However, all of them were extremely mysterious and isolated from the rest of the world. Inside those sacred retreats, there were either ancient Taoist sects that had existed for a long time, or ancient clans lived there. Or perhaps, some secluded places still retain the style and heritage of the ancient times. For example, the Great Zen Temple was located in a sacred retreat in the Big Dipper world called the Western Paradise. It was a mysterious Buddhist sect that had an extremely long history and resources and reserves, and it could even cause some ancient Taoist sects in the world to dim in comparison. The young monk from before was actually from the Great Zen Temple of the Western Paradise, and this was truly shocking. It's very simple. A great era is about to arrive, and some ancient Taoist sects that are isolated from the rest of the world have started to make arrangements with the intention of seeking some fortune during this battle. Ji Xingyao continued. The successor of the great Zen temple from before is called Xingzhenzi. He's elegant, outstanding, and possesses extraordinary natural talent. He's born with the natural talent of the Buddha bone lotus heart, and his strength can only be described as unfathomable amongst his peers. The expressions of everyone present changed. Ji Xingyao was the leading figure of the younger generation in the Western Ocean world, and she was a peerless genius that deserved her reputation. Even she praised Xing, who possessed the Buddha-bone lotus heart, as unfathomable. So there was no doubt that he was definitely a peerless figure as well. Could it be that Xing intends to participate in the Tao discussion lantern discussion as well? Someone asked, and it instantly drew the attention of the other peerless figures. Just moments ago, Devil God Lin had made a domineering appearance and caused a world-shocking chaotic battle. Now, another peerless figure from the great Zen temple, Xing, had made an appearance. So how could anyone not pay attention to this? He won't be participating. Ji Xingyao said, according to my knowledge, Xing has come here for no other reason than to witness the elegant bearing of the geniuses of the younger generation in the Western Ocean world, and he isn't interested in the Tao discussion lantern discussion. She paused for a moment before her starry eyes were suffused with brilliant divine radiance, and her voice carried a trace of surprise. However, I heard that Xing is interested in the Genius Gold rankings that will be released in the entire ancient desolation region in a year. The hearts of everyone jerked as they realized that it was unusual, and they inquired about it. Ji Xingao didn't conceal it, and said, my knowledge is limited, and I've only seen a few words about the Genius Gold rankings in the ancient books of my sect. According to what she said, the Genius Gold rankings had existed since the ancient times countless years ago. There were 100 rankings on this rankings, and only the 100 strongest peerless geniuses in the world were able to be ranked on it. According to rumor, during the ancient times, for the sake of competing for a position on the Genius Gold rankings, the geniuses of the younger generation in the myriad of worlds had once carried out innumerable, unprecedented battles that shook the world. Ji Xingyao spoke slowly with a clear and melodious voice, and it caused all the peerless figures present here to be unable to calm down. It's not exaggerated to say that so long as one's name is capable of appearing on the Genius Gold rankings, then one can be said to be one of the most dazzling geniuses of an era. The hall was deathly silent while the emotions of everyone rose and fell. After they found out about the origins of the Genius Gold rankings, it caused all of them to be shocked in their hearts. In the boundless ancient times, geniuses were like the array of stars in the sky, and they were innumerable. There were innate divine children, peerless geniuses, geniuses with extraordinary natural talent, descendants of gods with formidable bloodlines. It was obvious what sort of heaven-defying ability these geniuses possessed when they were able to ascend onto the Genius Gold rankings all those years ago. This isn't just a symbol of identity and strength. It even represents the possibility of stepping foot into the life and death realm and becoming a peak king. Ji Xingyao changed the topic while her clear eyes flowed with unusual divine radiance. The Extinction King realm is extremely ethereal, mysterious, and impossible to see. It's unreal like a legend, but according to the ancient rumors, so long as one's able to ascend onto the Genius Gold rankings, then one would possess the hope to strive for the path to the true Extinction King realm. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone present here was shocked. All of these peerless figures were utterly unable to maintain their calm, and all of them revealed various expressions while divine lights emanated from their eyes. There's actually such a rumor. A Genius Gold rankings is actually related to the path to the Extinction King realm that's impossible to see like a legend, and this was undoubtedly too shocking. Everyone, after countless years, the Genius Gold rankings is about to appear once more in the world. This undoubtedly means that a true great era is about to arrive. As a fellow Taoist, I hope that even more people from our West-hung world will be able to ascend onto the rankings. Ji Xingyao spoke with a calm expression that carried a wisp of a pure and holy aura. At this moment, she finally revealed the bearing that belonged to the number one holy maiden of West-hung world. In an instant, everyone present here was moved, and they firmly remembered this piece of information. Of course, what we have to do now is the curtains to the Tao Discussion Lantern Festival that's about to begin. Ji Xingyao seemed to have taken control of the right to speak, and merely a single sentence from her drew the attention of everyone in the surroundings once more. The Lantern Festival this time is bound to surpass the past, and it'll be unprecedentedly grand. There will be numerous unexpected and formidable figures participating in it. Moreover, this means that if one wants to seize great fortune during the Tao Discussion Lantern Festival, then the competition will be even more brutal and intense than before. When she spoke up to hear, a wave of applause suddenly resounded, and along with this applause, a young man in green robes and a jade belt with a carefree bearing walked into the 9th level of the spring and autumn pavilion. Miss G is right. A great era is about to arrive, and all the geniuses in the world are going to compete and strive for supremacy. If one wants to become eminent, then it's bound to be even more brutal than before. Only a small group of people are able to rise up, whereas most of the others are bound to be eliminated and reduced to stepping stones. The young man's voice was warm like jade, clear like a bell, and carried a unique rhythm. His appearance could be said to be extraordinary to the extreme. He had slanted brows, starry eyes, fair skin, black hair that hung down his back, and he seemed extraordinary. As soon as he appeared, he drew the gazes of everyone present here. Bai Ling Shi and the other disciples of the paradisiacal lands stood up and bowed. Senior brother Yu. Without a doubt, this young man was a peerless figure of the southern profound world's paradisiacal lands, and he was a peerless genius that possessed extraordinary natural talent since a young age. Yu Linkong, he really could be said to be an impeccable figure. His physique was superb, his natural talent extraordinary, and he possessed a peerless bearing. Moreover, his identity was extremely renowned. The Yu clan he resided in had existed since the ancient times until now, and it was a renowned colossus in the southern profound world. Moreover, it possessed a true saint that resided within it. On the other hand, he'd become a disciple of the paradisiacal lands. It could be said that in terms of identity and background, most geniuses in the world were far from being able to compare to him. This was Yu Linkong. He was like a favored child of the heavens, and it was very difficult for others to feel envious of him because the gap between them was truly too huge. The eyes of everyone present here focused, and many even revealed a trace of fear. Even though they were peerless geniuses, they still felt a shapeless pressure when facing a peerless figure like Yu Linkong, who possessed great karmic luck and a great background. Only Ji Xingyao frowned. She seemed to be unable to say that she welcomed Yu Linkong's sudden appearance, but she didn't reveal any aversion towards him, and she could barely be considered to be indifferent. Yu Linkong seemed to have not noticed all of this. He grinned and directly walked over to sit by Ji Xingyao's side, and then he said, "Unfortunately, I was a step too late. I heard that Devil God Lin caused a world-shocking chaotic battle earlier. It's truly a pity that I wasn't able to witness it." Devil God Lin. No one noticed that when she heard this form of address, a wisp of irrepressible waves arose in Ji Xingyao's heart, and a wisp of imperceptible resentment flashed on her peerlessly beautiful face. Moreover, Ji Xingyao felt even more dislike towards Yu Linkong, who mentioned Devil God Lin. P.S. 1. I'm looking for a guaranteed monthly ticket on the first day of the month. Chapter 869. Tut tut, Brother Lin. From today onwards, great waves are bound to arise in the West-hung world, and your fame is bound to rise to a new height. In an inn in Star Cliff City, Bai Fenglu was beaming with joy and spittle flying. He was very excited, and his old face glowed with excitement when he thought of the shocking melee that had just occurred. Brother Lin? Lin Sun despised the old man in his heart. The old man was so eager to get close to Lin Sun without a trace. Lin Sun, I feel that after today's battle, I'm afraid you will fall into a more passive position, Yu Jiaming pondered and said. Bai Fenglu was startled. Soon after, he solemnly said, "That is indeed a problem. After all, you unleashed your ferocious might today and nearly killed Qing Lian. Those experts from the Green Phoenix tribe will definitely hate you to the bone. In addition, Sha Luchan, who was defeated by you, can't bear this defeat, and it's very likely that he will attack you again at the beginning of the Tao Discussion Lantern Festival." Yu Jiaming shook his head. Not only that, there are countless peerless figures gathered near the pavilion of spring and autumn today. After witnessing this battle, it's hard to guarantee that they won't have some other thoughts about Lin Sun. Lin Sun narrowed his eyes. In fact, when he fought with Sha Luchan and Qing Lian this time, he realized that it was almost impossible to kill them under the watchful eyes of so many people. The reason was very simple. Both of them were peerless figures, and they must be escorted by experts when they came to participate in the Tao Discussion Lantern Festival. In addition, Lin Sun suspected that peerless figures like Sha Luchan and Qing Lian must have many life-saving trump cards in their hands. After all, once they were killed, it would definitely be a heavy blow to the forces behind them, and the loss would be too heavy. At that time, the appearance of Grandma Golden Crane had undoubtedly confirmed Lin Sun's guess. In other words, it wasn't so easy to kill peerless figures like Sha Luchan and Qing Lian. Thinking of this, Lin Sun thought of something and asked, "Old Bai, do you know Grandma Golden Crane?" Bai Fenglu said casually, "She's a formidable figure, and her seniority in the Profound Ass Sword School is extremely high. Even the current sect master of the Profound Ask Sword School, Mu Tsangxue, has to be courteous to her." When he spoke up to hear, Bai Fenglu's eyes suddenly opened wide, and then he slapped his thigh and said, "How could I have forgotten? Since Granny Golden Crane has made an appearance today, then it's definitely because the current Holy Maiden of the Profound Inquiry Sword School, Ji Xingyao, has arrived." Ji Xingyao? Lin Sun looked a little strange and asked, "What do you mean?" Bai Fenglu explained, "Presently, practically everyone in West Hung region knows that the Profound Inquisition Sword House didn't hesitate to ask Granny Golden Crane to follow by Ji Xingyao's side for the sake of protecting her. This also means that wherever Granny Golden Crane appears, Ji Xingyao will be nearby. So she's Ji Xingyao." In an instant, the image of an aloof and quiet girl with a temperament as cold as snow emerged in Lin Sun's mind. She was dressed in a black dress and had a delicate figure. Half of her face was covered by a silver mask, and only a pair of clear eyes and plump and rosy lips could be seen. The mysterious masked girl who fought with him in the Pine Mist Taoist field in Yin capital. At the thought of this, Lin Sun was a little speechless. That extremely proud girl actually asked about Ji Xingyao, the current Holy Maiden of the Profound Inquisition Sword School? Who would dare to believe it? Moreover, Lin Sun felt a little guilty because when he fought with Ji Xingyao, he accidentally bumped into the girl's buttocks, which led to some kind of misunderstanding and made the latter furious. If he hadn't left quickly, it was unknown how many disputes would have arisen. What a headache! The corners of Lin Sun's mouth twitched imperceptibly. If he had known that the extremely proud girl was Ji Xingyao, he would have definitely kept a respectful distance from her. This girl was praised as the leader of the young generation in West Hung region. Like a fairy from heaven, she was fanatically pursued by countless practitioners. If he had any connection with her, it would definitely lead to a lot of immeasurable troubles. "Brother Lin, why do I feel that you seem to have some special feelings for Ji Xingyao?" Suddenly, Bai Fenglio's old face came over sneakily, and his face was full of ambiguity and curiosity. Slap! Lin Sun slapped the back of his head and said angrily, "Don't get any ideas. I have nothing to do with this extremely proud woman." However, Bai Fenglu became more and more suspicious. He grimaced and said, "You haven't even met Ji Xingyao. How do you know that she is very proud?" It had to be said that Bai Fenglio's sense of smell was really too damn sensitive. He deserved to be a man who aspired to become the king of news. Seeing that Lin Sun's face was a little dark, Bai Fenglu immediately smiled and stopped talking about this topic. However, he was extremely ecstatic in his heart. The sense of smell that he had developed after many years of inquiring about information told him that demon god Lin definitely had an affair with Ji Xingyao. Oh my, he just hooked up with a girl from the pure land of longevity. And now he has an inexplicable relationship with the current Holy Maiden of the Profound Inquisition Sword School. Is demon god Lin going to play a love triangle? Or are the two girls fighting for a husband? Bai Fenglu thought and secretly made up his mind to dig out the inside story. If there was a chance, once this news was released, it would definitely shock the world. If Lin Sun knew this old fool's thoughts, he would probably kill him immediately. Lin Sun was asking Yu Jiaming about the Tao Discussion Lantern Festival. According to Yu Jiaming, all the talents who participated in the Tao Discussion Lantern Festival needed to undergo a series of tests. At that time, the green lamp tree of Ancient Way would appear on the azure parasol mountain and condense bronze flower buds. At the same time, the whole azure parasol mountain would be covered with a layer of mysterious prohibition, turning the whole mountain into a magical secret realm. If one wanted to participate in the Tao discussion and seize fortuitous encounters, then one had to pass through layer upon layer of tests and enter the deepest depths of the secret realm. Only then would one be able to see the true green lantern tree of the ancient Tao and find the fortune and fortuitous encounter that countless people dreamt of. Hearing this, Lin Sun looked a little strange. Azure Parasol Mountain, green lamp tree of Ancient Way, secret realm, layers of tests, opportunities. He always felt that this was not like a Tao discussion, but more like a selection of disciples. Only those who passed the screening and tests could get the opportunities. At this moment, Bai Fenglu came over and said mysteriously, "According to the ancient records left behind by the ancestors of my clan, the Azure Parasol Mountain was a sacred mountain in ancient times. A supreme orthodoxy was established on it, and there were many sages overseeing it. They taught and explained the profound truths of the great Tao. They had countless disciples. However, due to some unknown reason, this supreme Taoism did not survive. Instead, it was destroyed in the long river of time. According to the information collected by our ancestors, this Azure Parasol Mountain should be the mountain gate left by that supreme Taoism. And the green lamp tree of Ancient Way is the tree of inheritance of that supreme Taoism. It is the origin and foundation of this Taoism." Lin Sun and Yu Jiaming were shocked. How could there be such a rumor about Azure Parasol Mountain and the green lamp tree of Ancient Way? Of course, this is just speculation. The things of ancient times are too distant and ethereal. No one can see the whole truth, Bai Fenglu said. Even so, Lin Sun vaguely felt that this rumor was very likely to be true. As time went by, 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. Lin Sun did not show up in public again. He had been adjusting his breath and tempering his cultivation in order to be in the peak state when the Tao Discussion Lantern Show began. Yu Jiaming did the same. Only Bai Fenglu had been inquiring about the news outside these 2 days. This old man could not stay idle for a quarter of an hour. He put all his energy into inquiring about the news. He was worthy of being a senior secret agent of the Wind Whisperer clan. During this period, more and more talented people from different areas of the West Hung territory poured into Starcliff City. Among them, there were many peerless figures who were famous all over the world. In this way, Starcliff City became more and more lively and prosperous. Cultivators could be seen everywhere in the streets and alleys. Even Heaven's favorites, who were rarely seen in the past, could be seen everywhere. It was truly a spectacle. At the same time, along with the curtains to the Tao Discussion Lantern Show being drawn, the entire Starcliff City had become the center of attention of the entire West Hang territory. The gazes of countless great powers and clans converged on a Starcliff City in unison, and they were waiting and paying attention to the latest news. It could be predicted that the Tao Discussion Lantern Show this time was bound to be filled with dazzling stars and an unprecedentedly grand occasion. Moreover, countless battles and competitions that could be said to be world-shocking would definitely occur. Right on the day before the Tao Discussion Lantern Show began, an extremely shocking piece of news spread throughout Starcliff City, and it caused a mighty uproar. Someone spoke with certainty. Demonic God Lin possessed heaven-defying fortune and even possessed a sane artifact. He could be said to be peerless, and this allowed him to transform from a youth from the lower dimensions into a peerless figure with a terrifying combat strength that was capable of crushing his peers. As soon as this news spread, Bai Fenglu turned pale with fright, and he was completely unable to sit still and hurriedly went to look for Lin Sun. A wisp of gloominess instantly arose in Lin Sun's heart when he found out about all of this. The curtains to the Tao Discussion Lantern Show would be drawn tomorrow, Yet it just so happened that such news had spread today. Obviously, someone had intentionally seized this opportunity to target him. Merely the word Saint Artifact was sufficient to make anyone's eyes go red with envy, and even some old fellows of the King realm were tempted and coveted by it. The release of such news about Lin Sun was undoubtedly instigating and stirring up discord in the hearts of everyone, and it instantly pushed Lin Sun to the forefront. In this way, it would definitely draw the attention of numerous gazes. Once someone was unable to restrain himself, then it was bound to cause trouble. In this world, incidents of killing and seizing treasures were common occurrences. As the saying goes, a man's wealth is his own ruin. When faced with a peerless treasure like a Saint Artifact, not to mention ordinary cultivators, even old fellows of the King realm would be unable to refrain from seizing it. Chapter 870. The situation is not good. Bai Fenglu was a senior spy of the Wind Whisper clan. He often spread all kinds of news, and his sense of smell was more sensitive than that of the practitioners. He judged in an instant that a storm against Lin Sun was coming. The reason was very simple. Lin Sun rose too fast. Half a year ago, even the West Ocean world didn't know of his existence. But in a short period of a few months, he'd risen domineeringly, revealed his extraordinary ability, and caused countless storms. First, he had an unprecedented duel with the mysterious masked girl in Yin capital. Then, he became enemies with many strong practitioners of the Black Sea Dog clan and staged a world-famous hunting in the wilderness. Until now, he had defeated Sha Luchan and almost killed Qing Lian before the eyes of so many geniuses. Now, everyone in the world knew that Fiend God Lin came from the lower realm. Yet, a youth in the lower realm had risen to prominence so rapidly. He had already become a peerless elite whose name shook the Western Hung world. So, it was hard not to think about it. Under such circumstances, when news spread that Demon God Lin possessed a great opportunity and even possessed a peerless sage treasure, it was obvious what the other cultivators would think when they learned of this. Who on earth is it? Lin Sun frowned and fell in a deep thought. Since he entered the ancient desolation realm, he had indeed offended many people, but he couldn't determine who did it, because there were too many suspects such as Sha Yutong, Sha Luchan, Qing Lian Zhongli Wuji. But no matter who it was, such a news had been released, and there was no need for any conclusive evidence to make him the target of public criticism. Brother Lin, do you really have a holy treasure? After hesitating for a long time, Bai Fenglu couldn't help but ask. Lin Sun squinted at him and said, "What do you think?" Bai Fenglu was embarrassed, and he hurriedly shook his head and said, "How would I know? But no matter if you possess a Saint Artifact or not, the current situation really isn't optimistic. The Tao Discussion Lantern discussion is about to begin tomorrow, yet something like this just had to happen at such a critical moment." Lin Sun nodded. His black eyes were deep and cold. No matter who it was, if they wanted to use this Tao Discussion Lantern Festival to deal with him, they would have to pay the price. In the final analysis, you rose too fast. Yu Jianming, who was at the side, had a complicated expression on his face. It carried a trace of envy and a kind of emotion. After that, he restrained his feelings and said seriously, "It's easy to avoid a spear in the open, but it's difficult to avoid a stab in the dark. The person that spread the news this time is absolutely extremely sinister and ruthless. He seized the right opportunity and practically didn't waste any effort to make you a target. I can predict that when you participate in the Tao Discussion Lantern gathering, there'll surely be someone that'll be unable to endure such bewitchment and make a move against you." Bai Fenglu sighed. "It's more than that. Everyone knows that Lin Sun came from the mortal world. He has no background and no one to rely on. Under such circumstances, no matter who wants to deal with Lin Sun, they will have no scruples or fears." What he said was the truth. If Lin Sun was the successor of an ancient orthodoxy in the West Hung world, even if people knew that he had good fortune and possessed a holy treasure, they would have to consider the consequences when they wanted to deal with him. But obviously, Lin Sun didn't have such conditions. Seeing that both of them were worried, Lin Sun couldn't help but smile, No matter who he is, I'm going to kill Zhongli Wuji at the Dao Discussion Lantern Gathering. If anyone else dares to jump out, I'll kill him as well." These words were casual, but they seemed extremely overbearing and full of killing intent. Suddenly, both Bai Feng Lu and Yu Jiaming were shocked. They knew that Lin Sun's killing intent had been aroused. After a while, Bai Feng Lu scratched his head and said, "Why do I suddenly feel a little pity for those blind opponents?" Yu Jiaming agreed and said, "I think so too." In Starcliff City, a storm was brewing. After the news about Lin Sun was released, it caused a great sensation. If it were in the past, many people would definitely scoff at it and wouldn't believe such rumors. But now, many practitioners had confirmed that Demon God Lin was a peerless figure who deserved his reputation. He was so fierce that even Sha Luchan and Qing Lianer were no match for him. Under such circumstances, Lin Sun's fame also rose steadily, and he received all kinds of unexpected praise. However, as the news about him came out, most practitioners began to believe that Lin Sun had a great fortune and possessed a peerless holy treasure. Otherwise, how could a young man from the mortal world have such a terrifying combat power? What kind of fortune could make a young man from the mortal world transform into a peerless talent who can suppress his peers? Countless practitioners were excited and made various speculations. They thought that Lin Sun had either obtained some kind of heaven-defying inheritance or some kind of cultivation treasure. Some even suspected that Lin Sun had obtained the mantle of a sage. Otherwise, how could he obtain a peerless holy treasure? In short, all kinds of speculations and discussions invisibly made many practitioners have some subtle ideas. Even some talents more or less looked strange when talking about this matter. Although they didn't say anything on the surface, they already had many ideas in their hearts. This is reasonable. A young man from the mortal world transformed into a peerless talent like a golden dragon. It would be abnormal if he didn't obtain some kind of great fortune. This was Sha Liuchan's reaction after hearing the news. "Junior brother Xia, is it true that you and Lin Sun came from the same place?" Zhua Quanglan of the Feather Sword sect couldn't stay calm and couldn't help asking. Sha Yutong opened his mouth but didn't know what to say. He was quite aggrieved and didn't know how to answer. In the end, it was no different from praising Lin Sun. "Junior sister Lingshi, is it true that your friend has obtained some incredible great fortune, as rumor has it?" Even those successors from the pure land of longevity in the South Xian world couldn't stay calm and asked by Lingshi, "Do you think it's a so-called fortune that made him what he has today?" Bai Lingshi asked. There was a trace of displeasure on her beautiful and refined face. The road of cultivation is to cultivate one's own Taoist heart. The so-called fortune and fortune are just icing on the cake. The key is whether one's own Taoist heart is firm or not. Everyone was indifferent and obviously didn't believe her. Only Yu Lingkong smiled and praised from the side. "Junior sister Lingshi is right. The rise of any peerless figure isn't decided by a single fortune. If it's really like that, then why would I have to travel so far to participate in the Dao Discussion Lantern Festival?" She spoke casually, yet it carried a strand of arrogance. Everyone instantly nodded. Indeed, if it was in terms of fortune and fortune, Yu Lingkong could absolutely be called the darling of the heavens. In the Yu clan, there was a true saint. Moreover, his status in the pure land of longevity was extremely extraordinary, and he was favored and taken care of by some old fellows. So, he could obtain any fortune or fortune he wanted at any moment. But it was very obvious that Yu Lingkong's current status was absolutely not decided by fortune and fortune. In this world, there is no lack of figures of noble birth and extraordinary talent. But because of their bad temperament, they were affected by all sorts of things, and in the end, they achieved nothing and were reduced to arrogant and domineering profligates. They didn't make any achievements on the path of cultivation, and they could only rely on the power of the clan to act like a tyrant. For such people, it was impossible for them to become a peerless figure whose name shook the world, even if they were given great fortune and fortune. However, to everyone's surprise, Yu Lingkong changed the topic at this moment and said, "However, besides his own reasons, Lin Sun's current achievements are definitely inseparable from the help of fortune and fortune. Everyone was stunned. Even Bai Lingshi was slightly stunned. Yu Lingkong said to himself, otherwise, as a young man with neither foundation nor background, it would have been impossible for him to enter the ancient desolation realm from the inferior world, let alone become a peerless figure in the West Hung region. Someone couldn't help but ask, seeing your brother Yu, in this way, you also believe the rumor about demon god Lin? Yu Lingkong smiled and said, whether I believe it or not, the facts are there. When the Tao Discussion Lantern Festival begins, we will naturally find out whether it is true or not. Everyone agreed with him. Only Bai Lingshi was deeply worried. Even Yu Lingkong approved of Lin Sun. It could be imagined that after this news came out, it would inevitably bring unpredictable influence to Lin Sun, which was a disaster rather than a blessing. Ho ho! In a quiet courtyard, when Granny Golden Crane heard the news about Lin Sun, she showed a disdainful smile. She had experienced so many things in her life that she almost instantly concluded that someone deliberately added fuel to the flames in the dark and wanted to take this opportunity to kill Lin Sun with a borrowed knife. This method is really a bit despicable, but it can also be seen that the person who spread the news is definitely not strong enough to compete with Lin Sun. Otherwise, he wouldn't have to use such a small trick. But then again, this trick is really effective. Lin Sun is in trouble this time. He will probably be badly battered. Granny Golden Crane hit the nail on the head and pointed out the reason. However, it made Ji Xingyao feel quite uncomfortable when she heard it. She couldn't help frowning and said, why do you still mention this guy? Even if he is badly battered, what does it have to do with me? I can't wait to see him make a fool of himself. Granny Golden Crane said patiently, Miss, don't you think now is the best time to win Lin Sun over? Now everyone knows that he is no one to rely on. We can take him as a disciple of our sect. In this way, we can not only solve his trouble, but also recruit a peerless disciple for our sect. It can be said to be the best of both worlds. But Ji Xingyao said flatly, impossible. This bastard is too hateful and shameless. I have already decided to teach him an unforgettable lesson in this Tao Discussion Lantern Festival. How can I try to win him over? Don't even think about it. Granny Golden Crane smiled helplessly and thought to herself, Lin Sun really crossed the line when we were in Yin Capital. Miss has never suffered such a big loss in her life. It's a pity that such a good seedling will be wasted. Early the next morning, the sky had just lit up when a strange fluctuation suddenly surged from the heavens and the earth and spread out, quickly drowning Star Cliff City.